Sarvebhyo Namaha. Good morning, friends. We have gathered here this morning to commemorate 25 years of writings of Sri Sandeep Balakrishna and also celebrate his 50th birthday. He come together to wish him many and more happy returns of this day. Tavastu Mangalya Vivriddhaye Harihi. Let us begin this program with an invocation. And to render the invocation song, we have Sri Kashyap N. Naik, who is one of Preksha's advisors and trustees. And he is an advocate and a singer trained in the Hindustani Laghu Shastriya Sangeet.
अर्थचतुष्टय शिक्षा अर्थचतुष्टय शिक्षा साक्षात्कृत यज्ञदान तपसा दीक्षा दीक्षा वाग्वृत्ति त्रय रक्षा वाग्वृत्ति त्रय रक्षा प्रेक्षा सो जयति प्रेक्षा सो जयति 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 भारती पदलाक्षा प्रेक्षा सो जयति भारती पदलाक्षा भारती पदलाक्षा प्रेक्षा सो जयति प्रेक्षा सो जयति प्रेक्षा सो जयति जयति जयति
Thank you, Kashyap, for that mellifluous rendering. The lyrics of the song that you just heard is penned by Shatavadhani Dr. R. Ganesh, and it succinctly captures the aims and objectives of Preksha Pratisthana, which is to serve Sanatana Dharma by anchoring ourselves to Purushartha Chatushtaya through the means of Yajna, Dana, Tapas, specifically in the areas of Sahitya and Sanskriti. A couple of words on our organization. The dominant activity of Preksha is the publication of a niche online journal. Our journey began in 2016, and thus far we have published about 3,000 essays in about 5 languages. We have had the absolute privilege of being associated with authors of about 40 books. More than 50 scholars have contributed to the journal, which is read across 5 continents. It gives us great pleasure to organize the present program to honor Sandeep, because Sandeep was the person who began the Preksha website back in 2016. As all of you know, Sandeep is an accomplished author, translator, socio-political analyst, and the founder editor of the hugely popular online portal, the Dharma Dispatch. So we take great pleasure in inviting everybody to this. Are wide-ranging, varied, and staggering, but it is futile to enlist at least a few of them because by mindset and by nature, Sri SRR is an Avadhuta, so he might as well brush them aside. Suffice it to say that Sandeep looks up to the model of journalism and cultural analysis that was shaped by the great D.V. Gundappa and continued by his illustrious disciple Sri S.R.Ramaswamy. So it is very apt and heartwarming that SRR is here to felicitate Sandeep. I extend a very warm welcome to him. The chief guest of today's program is Dr. Ritendra Sharma, or as we know him fondly, Dr. Ram Sharma. He has come down from all the way from Ahmedabad. He is the director of the Center for Indic Studies at Indus University. He holds a PhD in semantics and has been active in the Indic sphere from more than 2 decades. He was pivotal in putting together a series of brilliant talks titled India Inspires. Most of us would have heard the talks, featuring such stalwarts as David Frawley, N.S. Rajaram, and Michel Danino. And he is now actively engaged in integrating the Indian knowledge systems into the mainstream educational curricula. One of his chief interests is in propagating the works of native Indian scholars, and this is a major thrust area of Preksha Pratisthana as well. So it gives us great pleasure to have you with us here, sir. Extend a very warm welcome to you. On the stage, we also have our own Shatavadhani, Dr. R. Ganesh. In fact, the genesis of this program was in Dr. R. Ganesh's mind. He proposed to us that we have a seminar on Sandeep's works and celebrate his birthday. His wish is our command, and so here we are. And of course, it is our bounden duty to do something for our dear friend Sandeep. Apart from his accomplishments in the areas of Avadhana, arts, literature, aesthetics, etc., to us at Preksha Pratisthana, he is, in the parlance of Vedanta, Abhinnopadana Nimitta Karana. So we extend a very warm welcome to him. In the audience, we have Srimati Rohini, Sandeep's better half. We have Sandeep's mother, Srimati Rohini's mother. We also have Sandeep's family members, friends, relatives, readers, the extended family of Preksha Pratisthana, and a whole host of our readers. I take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. Without much further ado, let us begin this program with the main event, the felicitation. I request all the dignitaries on stage to come together. I request Srimati Rohini to please come on stage and join Sandeep in receiving the felicitation. ॐ चरणं पवित्रं विततं पुराणं येन पूतस्तरति दुष्कृतानि तेन पवित्रेण शुद्धेन पूता अतिपाप्मानमरातिन्तरेम पर्वत इवाविचाचलिः इन्द्र इवेह ध्रुवस्तिष्ठा इह राष्ट्रमुधारय अभितिष्ठ प्रतन्यतः अधरे सन्तु शत्रवः इन्द्र इव वृत्रः तिष्ठ अपः क्षेत्राणि सञ्जयन् इन्द्र एणमदीधरत् ध्रुवं ध्रुवेण हविषा तस्मै देवा अधिब्रवन् अयं च ब्रह्मणस्पतिः निकामे निकामे नः पर्जन्यो वर्षतु फलिन्यो न ओषधयः पच्यन्तां योगक्षेमो नः कल्पतां हरिः ओम्. Thank you, everyone. May I now request Sri KPS Ramchandra to present a small token of our respect to Sri S.R.Ramaswamy, who has graced us with his presence, and also to Sri Kashyap N. Nayak, who sang the invocation. Thank you, friends. May I now request Dr. Ram Sharma to please speak a few words, the chief guest's address.
Shri Om Gurubhyo Namaha. So pranam, my humble pranam to first of all to two great stalwarts who are here, S.R.Ramaswamy ji and Shatabdani Ganesh sir. And I think they are institution in themselves. They are one who are shaping, making destiny or of dharmic warriors. The kind of group that I see here, as a Preksha team, the solid team, every one of them are a scholar of, very sincere seeker, scholar, profound explorers in their own right. And that forms very important nucleus where, Shatabdani ji, where all of them are surrounded by these giants also. So I think one big round of applause for Shatabdani ji and kind of scholarly team he has created around him. There are so many things to talk about when it comes to Sandeep's work, because he is civilizational thinker. He is not restricted himself to one or two areas. So to call him historian, to call him author, to call him translator would be injustice, because the kind of work and the span of 25 years and wide range of command he has on subjects. More importantly, it requires courage to challenge the establishment which are continuously producing hatred for Hindus and nothing else. And when they are dominating media, when they are dominating academia, when they are dominating all public discourses, you can understand that what kind of bravery and courage is required just to speak the truth when you are working against such kind of establishment. So it's very rare. I have been working in this field for the last 20 years now. In fact, I am also celebrating this week because I met my guru in 2004, somewhere last week of May. Okay. So this is something, very important also. Because since then I came to realize that there are very few people in Bharatvarsh who can speak out against dominant ideologies, colonial narratives, indoctrination done by various Breaking India forces, because you have to put at stake many things. Your personal career, your academic career, and many sacrifices you have to do. Only then you can sustain yourself for, the way Sandeep has done in 25 years. Of course, no words can express what he has done. So I'll not try, because I'm not as, literati. I cannot, you cannot use all choicest word that can be used to pay my gratitude to Sandeep. Okay. One thing I was also wondering is that, of course, we do not glorify individuals in Sanatan culture. So birthdays are something that usually we do not much focus on. Okay. But here we are not talking about someone. Here we are talking about a giant who has given a selfless service to Sanatan Dharma, to Rashtra, to nation. And when you have such life which goes beyond individualistic pursuit, egoless pursuit, the bigger cosmic cause or service of Sanatan Dharma, then that birthday should be celebrated. Because those birthdays are not remembrance or commemorating the life and work of individual. We are also remembering all those giants who shaped that particular individual. So here, of course, when I'm going to say anything with respect to Sandeep, I'm the same time remembering all those great stalwarts, particularly as we were talking last evening also, in the last 100 years, who saved Hindu Rashtra from all these Breaking India forces, and who helped build the grand narrative that we are looking through Bharatiya perspective. Now, this journey is not easy for any individual when dominant narrative is against you. And it requires a couple of factors to be taken together. And only then you can sustain yourself for 25 years at least. Otherwise, I have seen people around me very enthusiastic, very, passionate that they would like to do some service for Sanatan Dharma. But in few years, you will not find them around because of whatever capacity. So there are few factors I would like to list out, which I found that those who really would like to work as a dharmic warrior, as Sandeep has contributed in this sphere. First thing is, you have to remain in battlefield for a long time, till the end. Because this is civilizational warfare, and 5 years or 10 years is not a good span to evaluate things. Because this is like human time span. And when we are fighting for civilizational issue, we have to take care of civilizational time span in mind. This is what I learned from my guru 20 years back. And if you are in battlefield, continuously fighting, this itself proves your dedication and commitment to Sanatan Dharma. So one is this. Second is, you need to continuously hone your skills. Look, like in physical warfare, you have to hone your weapons. Similarly, when we are talking about intellectual warfare and the role of intellectual Kshatriya, then you have to be very rigorous. You cannot take your enemies lightly. Then you have to hone your skill continuously over the period. And that's what I have seen in Sandeep for the last 25 years, at least when I met him almost 12 years back in Bengaluru only. And look at his writings. In last 25 years, you'll find profound insights emerging on daily basis in his writings. That is second thing. Third is, another problem that is now for dharmic warrior is temptation because of social media of easy fame and easy recognition that is coming to it. Yes, social media is playing a very important role. Yes, we need to use that for our, narrative war, and we need to spread things related to Sanatan Dharma and all Breaking India forces, no doubt about that. But before you go and talk and spread something in social media, you need to have very good grounding in Shastra. You need to have very good grounding in social political issues, which requires decades of training. So I think Sandeep has avoided all these temptations of gaining fame quickly. Otherwise, he could have become, celebrity in the sense that social media, everywhere you'll find him. So that temptation, very few people can avoid, at least these days. Then, honest to one areas of expertise. If you think that you are good in certain area, like maybe, sciences, or it could be history, it could be anthropology, it could be sociology, it could be anything. But are you true to your profession or not? When you are contributing in history writing, are you taking care of all rigorous analysis, rigorous study that you have to undergo? And that I have found abundance in Sandeep. Like, he is all the time taking care that it's not a matter of slogans and jargons. Look, this battle is not going to be won only by jargons and slogans. It requires deep studies in certain areas. And when you have someone to look upon as Ram Swarupji and Sita Ramji as your role model, then certainly you will follow their legacy only when you are true to your profession only, or your area of expertise. And of course, in my list, the last one is always honoring our great gurus and stalwarts. This is something I think we are in full sync here, because since I met him, of course, I came to know about Shatabdani Ganesh from him only, and he was always in praise, always, saying that, he is doing wonderful job, and the kind of work that he is doing should be role model for other dharmic warrior. But not only Ganesh sir, but you look at his articles, you look at his book, he is always asking seekers like us that we don't need to build Indic Renaissance from scratch. There are great gurus, particularly in the last 100 or 150 years. They have done fantastic job. They had command of Shastra, Sanskriti, Sanskrit, and also they could critically analyze the Western framework. So this is not something when we become, aware of all these issues that we are alone and going to win on our own. This is something what it's associated with Newton's phrase that standing on the shoulder of giants. But here the equivalent phrase would be sitting at the feet of gurus. Only when you will sit at the feet of gurus, you can take this battle ahead. And when I read and reread works of Sandeep, I profusely found him quoting all these great stalwarts. So when I said that when we are celebrating his birthdays, when we are remembering his works and legacy, we are remembering all these great stalwarts who shaped this civilizational warfare and helped us understand Sanatan Dharma better. So one quote that I have taken from your writing only, and I'll use that, again and again. Of all the cultural losses we have suffered, the devaluation of the natural and time-honored authority of the guru or preceptor is perhaps the worst and the most tragic. This is what he wrote in one of his articles. And that's why it's time to remember K.M. Munshi also. It's time to remember R.C. Majumdar also. It's time to remember all Voice of India's stalwart, Sita Ramji, Ram Swarupji, David Frawleyji, Cornard Elst, Harsh Narayan, Shrikant Talgiri, N.S. Raja Ramji. It's time to remember P.V. Kane. It's time to remember Radha Kumud Mukherjee. It's time to remember A.S. Altekarji. It's time to remember all great stalwarts in all domains, because when I was doing my PhD in linguistics, the great works that I could find existed only prior to 1970s. Because after 1970s, the leftists have completely taken over our academia and media. So when I talk about linguistics, I think the great insights that emerged from writings of Gaurinath Shastriji, from P.C. Chakrabarti ji, from R.C. Pandey ji, from K.A. Iyer ji. Why I am taking these names is that this is not celebration of individual, this is celebration of collective efforts that our stalwarts have made and brought us here. Remember, we could have been wiped out like any other civilization from this planet if these stalwarts had not guided us and not taken care of these things. So it's time to celebrate that thing. Now celebration, as I saw that, it's literally translated as Utsav. And Utsav in Sanskrit means, if I am not wrong, Ganesh sir, elevation of consciousness. Yes. So when we are celebrating in Indic way, we are talking about elevation of consciousness. And that's what Utsav means in India. That's why we do not feast, we fast on that day. And that's why when we are celebrating here, we are celebrating the larger Indic ideas that we value, that we cherish, that we would like to pass on to our next generation. If we do not value them, then remember, we are not living in vacuum. There are multiple forces who are working day and night to wipe us out. So that brings me to my next point, that why Sandeep writing is important. Okay, I need to know how much time I have been given. I can go on? Okay. So the most important reason why Sandeep is writing, according to my analysis, and of course you will all agree, that we are facing existential threat to Hindus and to Hindu civilization. If we really want to survive, things are much better as compared to last 25 years, certainly. But remember, Hindus become complacent very easily also. That we have seen in warfare and physical warfare. So we have choice. Where we would like to see India in next 50 to 100 years, let's say. And what guarantee that what we are envisioning will be reality. So one choice is we become follower of only one true faith of love. We have another choice to become nation of only one true faith of peace. And this is, maybe I'm saying it in lighter manner, but these are some serious threats that we are facing. Because they are working day and night. Okay. One more choice I'm giving, only one true faith of equality. The third one. Okay. And of course they are also trying very hard to make that into reality. Then two more are there. Okay. Only one true faith of multiculturalism. So you become melting pot of all kind, and then you lose your discrimination, and then you don't know how to survive and what to survive for. Okay. And that's what Western society today is facing. The last one is only one true faith of nothingness. What wokeism is all about. Because certainly if you ask them what their fundamental ideology is, and it will boil down to, postmodernism, which is nothing but celebration of nothingness. Okay. So when we look at writings of Sandeep, we have to analyze what destiny we are going to have for India, whether we want to become converted into these, to be ruled by these ideologies, to be governed by these ideologies, which are going to shape our, all cultural phenomena around us. And that is reality in most part of India these days also. Look, Akhand Bharat, we became Bharat, and now we know various parts of India, how they are ruling separately. The thing is, historically, we faced them one by one, and we defeated them also. But in today, 21st century, when they are together, when they are collaborating with each other, when they are maybe world over fighting against each other, but when it comes to Sanatan Dharma, they collaborate with each other, they have this one single goal of annihilation of Hindu society. So, when I'm saying we are not celebrating here writing of an ordinary literature piece, we are celebrating here a warrior who can help us survive all these holocaust that is facing us in next 25 or 50 years. Right? How do we connect all these ideologies? Because they arose in different time, different historical circumstances. Some of them call themselves religion without having any inner sciences or a spiritual mechanism to elevate themselves. Okay. But they call themselves religion. Other call themselves secular ideology. What binds them together? So, having gone through all these like fundamental principles of these ideologies, what I can see, whether it's only one true faith of love or peace or equality or nothingness, okay. If you go deeper, you'll find that I'm just creating acronym here. Millenarian, apocalyptic, dreamland ideologies. So these are like MAD. Dreamland I'm just using as a substitute for utopia. Utopia is the best word to understand that. So what woke is doing right now in America, they have captured all institutions, in humanities department at least. And you see the protest all the days when they're supporting Palestine, when they're supporting, all other issues, going against their government. Just think about college students, university students, going against their government and aligning with cause which they think is international, which they think is, because they are revolutionary, they are justified in their action of even killing, not allowing proper functioning of universities. And what binds this ideology to one ideology that arose 2000 years ago, and that has created havoc for ancient Greece and ancient Rome also. So if you look at, maybe I'll read one quotation, one quote from John Gray on historicism and millenarianism. That might help us connect with why these threads are not temporary, transient, they are permanent, they morph into different shapes and forms over the period. But at least when you look at their fundamental assumptions, they are same. So John Gray is writing. This John Gray is not from women from Venus and all those stuff. He is different intellectual. In the forms in which it has affected Western societies, millenarianism is a Christian inheritance. Most religions lack any conception of history as a story with a beginning and an end. Hindus and Buddhist view of human life as a moment in a cosmic cycle. Salvation means release from this unending round. Plato and his disciples in pre-Christian Europe viewed human life in much the same way. Ancient Judaism contained nothing resembling the idea that the world was about to come to an end. He is writing about historically how it is evolved. Christianity injected the belief that human history is a teleological process. And maybe later when I'll talk about why history became important subject for them to manipulate, to distort, the seed lies here. The Greek word telos means end, a word that in English means both the terminus of a process and the goal or purpose that a process can serve. In thinking of history in teleological terms, Christians believed it had an end in both senses. History had a predetermined purpose, and when that was achieved, it would come to a close. Secular thinkers such as Marx and Fukuyama inherited this teleology, which underpins their talk of the end of history. In that they view history as a movement, not necessarily inevitable, but in the direction of a universal goal. Theories of progress also rely on a teleological view. So this linear conception of time, this progressive attitude, that will bring revolution and all those things. Standing behind all these conceptions is the belief that history must be understood not in terms of the causes of events, but in terms of its purpose, which is the salvation of humanity. This idea entered Western thought only with Christianity and has shaped it ever since. So if you see these ideologies that arose in last 2000 years in different shapes, forms and ideas, one underpinning or invisible thread that connects them is they are apocalyptic in nature. They are looking at the end of the world which is about to come. They are looking at the complete revolution and dismantling of whatever civilization they are aiming at. So these kind of forces have still, they are dominant. But 20 years back, when Sandeep started writing all these things, they were dominant forces. They had control of academia, as we all know, control of media, control of all public institutions. How to fight against them when you do not have any space to even voice against all these forces. It's not an easy task. If you remember the journey of Voice of India publication, either they were marginalized, they were silenced, they were never talked about. And of course they struggled, they brought out all the works, more than 100 publication. In 2000, perhaps, when you started writing, 1990, the situation was not also good, really dark. Only internet, when it came, it gave us a lot of space to voice whatever we think is objective and historical truth. So, in fact, even it was very difficult to get books at that time. Now, because of online things, you can get and procure many kind of works. But just imagine, 25 years back, Voice of India was the only publication which were publishing against these ideologies. And it was even difficult to get them from any bookstall nearby. You have to practically go to Delhi and buy from them only, because nobody could dare to put their books in their bookstore, in libraries. That was the terror of these totalitarian ideologies. Now they talk about all these freedom of expression and all these pluralism, all these things when they are in opposition. But when they were in power themselves, they never talked, never gave any space to such kind of free flow discussion on Sanatana Dharma. Of course, when you are working in academia, particularly, because that's the place where intellectuals will work, but you have to swear by Marx or Engels, you have to write things because I have seen that still that is predominant. If you want to complete your PhD, your thesis, you have to mention 10 important jargon and slogans that arise from left liberal framework, without which your thesis will not be accepted. This is the kind of control over academia. This is important to remember, because such kind of writing require real courage. And you have to forget about everything else in your life. You have to forget about your professional career. You have to forget about your academic career. And because you cannot rely on any institutional support also, so you have to work independently. And that's a real struggle of a dharmic warrior of last, at least what we have witnessed, particularly in this dark age of left liberal dominance of academia of almost 50 to 60 years now. This I am telling not only to share with you, but the larger audience, those who would like to become Hindu, dharmic warrior, that of course situations have become much better. We have a lot of power through social media. You look at, so much abundance of things, talks are coming, lectures are coming, and that's really shaping and changing the whole discourse in India also. But as I was saying, this temptation of working, using social media as a means is good. But if you think social media is an end in itself, and you keep working in social media only, you are not going to productively do anything in the civilizational warfare. Look at your enemies. Are they doing the similar thing? Or are they doing something very, secretly? Are they doing it very, which is invisible? When we are going to learn from all these people, right? Maybe timing you have to tell me. Right. Okay. Okay. So, one important point that I would like to share with you, and that I realized while Preksha and Dharma Dispatch so closely working together, and that is point related to history and itihas. As I told you, that history as a subject became prime target of these mad ideologies, millenarian, apocalyptic, dreamland ideologies, because they knew that if you have to subvert any civilization, history is the most prominent subject that you have to aim for. Because history is almost equivalent, when we look at individual, the most important thing for you is your memory. Suppose one day, if unfortunately through any neural process, if I take away your memories, what will happen? Of your whole life, whatever span it is, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 60 years. Can you recognize yourself? So this loss of memory at individual level can disorient individual. So loss of history and the narrative that comes from history writing is collective loss for any civilization. And look, when you are disoriented, then you become victim to any other forces that are on the ground. So should we become like them? Should we start writing history in the similar manner? Should we use it as a tool just to save ourselves, or to follow the path of itihas writing that we have been following for thousands of years? And this distinction between history and itihas is important. So, of course, we have to take care. While Sandeep is writing about invaders and infidels, you have to be very rigorous. You have to go to the primary sources. You have to challenge them, because when they are claiming that Islam came and liberated you, or people automatically got converted because they are talking about equality, they did not destroy temples, and all kind of whitewashing of their crimes, then of course you have to go to the hard facts and challenge them. So you have to follow the modern scholarship, as we call it in historiography. No doubt about that. But what I found in Sandeep's writing, which is important, is that he is not reducing himself to the history writing only. And that's where the role of itihas come in Sanatana Dharma. Look, sir, itihas is not discipline of what we can categorize as modern history. Itihas is something which is very closer to Kavya. That's why we call Ramayana and Mahabharata as Mahakavya. And that is altogether different discipline, because it takes care of 4 Purusharth. It takes care of elevating you through various techniques that is employed in Kavya. The point I would like to make here is history not for the sake of history. History to understand the philosophy of your civilization. History to understand the culture of your civilization. History to understand the deeper practices of your civilization. That kind of history is what we call indigenous perspective of history, that is called itihas. That's what I think Sandeep, besides his hard-hitting essays on communism and all other forces, but when you look at his literary pieces, you will find them that they are true itihas writing, which is closer to what Sitaram Goyalji was doing, which I think is very closer to even what one of my favorite, Will Durant, began writing. So I would like to quote again from Sandeep's work and would like to give flavor about this, and which from where I got this idea that he is not aiming at reductionist chronological political history of this country. What he is aiming at the civilizational history and cultural history of India. That's what K.M. Munshi and of course R.C. Majumdar also aimed at. So one paragraph from his work only. The loss of such remarkable stories. I think this is epilogue of Parmar Bhojraj when he wrote that piece. So in the end, when he's recounting this narration of Bhojdev story, I think Bhallaladev wrote that, right? And that's adaptation. Vallabh Sen, right. The loss of such remarkable stories counts as civilizational and cultural loss. Telling and retelling such stories is how we transmit and preserve our unparalleled cultural values and our civilizational memory to succeeding generations. No amount of authentic dating and scientific historical debates about the Pramar period, etc., will have quite the same impact as the profundity embedded in such stories. So he is at the same time aware, which I really like, appreciate, and which I think way for our future historians, that though of course we are fighting against this, these deadly enemies, but we cannot reduce ourselves to their methods and means only. We need to keep in background that Sanatana Dharma has more broader and profound approach to look at these things. These debates and discussion deservedly have their place and a significance of their own, but they don't form an essential part of our national life lived through the preservation of such historical consciousness. This is an intangible process and its value will be known only after it is lost. Thus, our next visit to all these places, which is talking about, Dhar near Indore, will invisibly open a deeper hidden vault within ourselves when we armed with such stories of the real people that lived there. These stories immediately make Bhoj accessible to us when we set foot in Dharnagar. This is history transformed to timelessness. It is nostalgia without melancholy. It's, I think, one of my favorite pieces that he has written, because besides I'm saying that all those hard-hitting pieces which is required to awaken our country, whatever he writes has literary flavor. He is basically composer in that sense, who's bringing all these stuff together. Again, one more thing I'd like to share. I'll take 5 minutes only. The study of Hindu history is also a study of values and inspiration, and a profound spiritual yearning that subconsciously continues to guide Hindus. It is also what makes India a unique and distinctive country, which is not primarily defined by its politics, but by its philosophy and spirituality. This is whom we considered, when you look at superficially at his work, you'll find that historian is writing. But historian, when they are well immersed in our civilizational ethos and values and Sanatan Dharma framework, they elevate history to the level of philosophy. And that's what I call Sandeep, that he's not historian, he's philosopher, he is composer, he is artist in that sense. Coming to my last point, and this is related to the pieces that he wrote on R.C. Majumdar and K. Munshi. I think those pieces are the finest that every index seeker must read. What happened to these stalwarts? The project, that is the only project that is available in the name of True and Objective Indian History. And when you read that, many of you might have read that, but when you read and reread it again and again, you find that what kind of conspiracies, what kind of political ideologies dominated, what kind of struggles even our stalwarts had to go through to bring out the truth, objective and nothing else but truth. And this, I think, must be read by everyone. So coming to the last part, of course I can go on because I have notes of around 10 pages more. Yes, maybe. So this brings me to the Ram Sarupji's insight of where we are today and why Sandeep writings play a very important role in awakening those who are still living in, under the illusion of multiculturalism, secularism, and all kind of isms that has created confusion in India. Ram Sarupji wrote this, that self-alienated Hindus are suffering from pragya dosh or drishti dosh. And without removing this dosha, drishti dosh, because unless you're clear about yourself and your, what you're fighting against, how you're going to win this warfare. And this will take time, because the kind of dominance they still have in all these institutions. But bit by bit, step by step, gradually, even independently, individually, the way he has done it can help remove this pragya dosh collectively from our psyche. And this is something very sincere and dedicated work that requires decades of efforts, and that our society must support, patronize, and of course time to time celebrate, as Shatabdani ji is doing today. And maybe the last point, coming to that, what are our weaknesses that we have to keep in mind? Learning again from Sandeep only and the Voice of India work. As K. Munshi ji wrote in context of Sanskrit, that we are unorganized in our efforts. We need to be more systematic and organized in our approaches. Confusion over mad ideologies. We are still unclear how to critically analyze wokeism, left liberalism, postmodernism, and Marxism and all those things. Besides Sandeep's work on Marxist history distortion, I know only one person in this country, and that is Shankar Sharanji, who has written extensively on this issue. Besides these two scholars, I have not found any work which has critically analyzed and documented how this distortion took place over several decades. A large patronage is missing still. And if that is available, that is very distorted way, and the personal selfish interests are always there. Fourth, a dedicated number of bright scholars, which is important because this, look, intellectual movement, you don't need mass movement for that. Intellectual movement happen with individual tapasyas only. Ram Sarupji did not care about whether I can have 100 people around me and will take, understanding Islam through hadith and all those things. Okay, that cannot happen. So those tapasya, self-sacrifice, looking civilizational time span in mind, and that's where family plays an important role. That's why when I really find it so satisfactory and so glad to see this, that the whole family is here today and celebrating this sacrifice. So dedicated number of bright scholars working ceaselessly for this civilizational churning for next 50 years would be required. And lastly, do not become complacent. Even if we are winning politically, we are losing at many fronts, at intellectual level, at spiritual level, at cultural level. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ram Sharma ji, for those very insightful and sharp words. True to his nature as an academic, he not only brought out the salient features of Sandeep ji's writings, but also highlighted the underlying issues that prop up whenever we look at the large picture. So we take this opportunity to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Ram Sharma ji for making time, coming here, and he is a...
I just missed saying one thing.
Yeah, please.
Because, look, Preksha and Dharma Dispatch is, for Indic seekers like us, is, Manas Tirtha Kshetra. Okay, so I am honored, blessed, and feeling, really pleased to be invited here. So please do not thank me for this.
The same dharma teaches us pratibadhnati shreyaf pujya puja vyatikramaha. It is our bounden duty to honor you. May I request Sri KVS Ramachandra to please come on stage and present to Dr. Ram Sharma a small token of our respect. Thank you once again. We are joined in the audience by several eminent people. Srimati Anupama Hoskere is here. She was awarded the prestigious Padma Shri by the Government of India recently. We have the editor of the Kannada edition of Voice of India series, Sri Manjunath Ajjampura ji. We have Dr. V.B. Arati, the director of Vibhu Academy, one of our friends and well-wishers. And there are many other people. We extend a very warm welcome to all of you. Next we have the pleasure of hearing Shatavadhani Dr. R. Ganesh. He's going to speak about Sandeep, the person. Dr. Ganesh has known Sandeep since 25 years and has also followed his works closely. So it would be a pleasure to hear him.
Om Tat Sat. Suprabhatam. After listening to Dr. Ram Sharma, I am quite diffident because he has spoken about the real personality of Sandeep in the background of Sanatana Dharma and Indian culture, and that is Sandeep. Bringing about some family details or some personal details or some other things, they may go in a lighter vein, but what to do? I am committed for the subject. However, this is the real picture of Sandeep, and we all wish to be that. I came to know about Sandeep only when I met him. He only came to me, I think, in one of the functions of IGNCA when I was working there for the Southern Regional Center. I was the research officer there. And I remember in the IGNCA office and also in one function at Ravindra Kala Kshetra, in the backstage he came and talked to me. I still remember him talking to me in the dim light. brilliantly, of course, what I should do, how to learn Indian philosophy, should I pursue MA and other things. Then I told, enough of MA, Kona and all these things. I always discourage degrees. And I told, you read good books. The only mantra, Hiriyanna, Sachidanandendra Saraswati, P.V. Kane, such people, and I am very happy that Sandeep followed that. And that shows the commitment of Sandeep. Getting degrees and all, it is formal qualification. Becoming substantially enriched, that is very important. And this is the byline of Sandeep, substantial enrichment. And before few days, I was talking to Rohini about the family background, what is his father's name. Though I know Sandeep Balakrishna, I thought it is part of his name. To that extent, when the persons become so close to us, we forget about other details. Ahetu pakshapato yas tasya nasti pratikriya sahi snehatmakastantar antarmarmani sivyati. We'll be forgetting everything else. His father, Balakrishna, and mother, proud mother, Ratnama is there. She was a teacher, and how she trained her son. And he has an younger sister, 3 years younger to him, Shilpa. 2 years. The mistake is from Rohini's side. He studied in Bengaluru itself. He is a pure Malleshwaram boy. He studied in Himanshu High School and later in Shesharipuram College. And there, perhaps, Professor M.N. Chandrasekhar, a very pious scholar of Vedanta, Veda, and affection, warmth, everything embodied, hailing from Mathur, renowned for its Vedic culture, he taught him there, and perhaps under him he learnt Vedas also. And while Shashi was doing the Veda Ghosha, he too was reciting the Vedas. And this is the way of a practicing Hindu. He is never a cosmetic Hindu. And his maternal aunt belonged to Chitradurga, and he had that feeling also. Apart from living in a city, going to a village or a town or a less urbanized area and getting the pulse and feel of the people, that makes a person stronger. And always we are going to the roots means we have to touch the soil. If we are not going to the soil, how can we get our roots stronger in the concrete jungle? And that's how his background is very significant. And in 2001, he married Rohini. And in all senses, she is better half. Grihini Sachivaha Sakhi Mitaha Preshishya Lalite Kalavidhav. Not many people will be having that fortune of least expectant wife, least expectant spouse. It is very rare to happen. And Bhagyavan Labhate, Bhartur Bhagyam hi Bharyaika. That's what being told by Sanskrit poets. And coming to the mundane details, which are of much interest, of course, his liking for ladies only with respect to Rohini, but likes ladies' finger vegetable. Like me, he is also very fond of mangoes, unlike Shashi, who dislikes mango. And of course, the noodles, the typical Indian noodles, that is shavige, sevika as we call, that he likes very much. And all the traditional food, saru, holi, majge holi, and all that. And of course, as being inspired by Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, others, he loves Bengali sweets. And of course, his liking is for blue color, and that's why I have come with that color. My Lord's color, Bhagavan Shri Krishna's color, and the bright sky, and the deep ocean, whatnot. And he likes the board game Scrabble. I don't know anything about that. I may be spelling also wrongly. That is my wisdom in sports. I know only one Krida, that is Avadhanam Sahityika Krida. And his Kuladevata is, of course, Subramanya from Ghati, very close to Bengaluru. Subramanya, incidentally, he is the deity of war and wisdom. He is Subramanya. Brahmanyeshu Shobhanaha, Agraganyaha. He is best among the Brahmajnanis. Who was Sanat Kumara and who taught Narada about that Bhuma Vidya in Chandogya Upanishad. That's how we have Skanda. He has been addressed as Skanda in the Chandogya Upanishad. We find our warriors were all Brahmakshatra warriors. intellectual Kshatriyas, as Sitaram Goyal and Ram Swarup call. And then he is also Devasenani, Devasenapati. This is how we see Kshatra and Brahma in Sandeep. And his Ishtadeva is, of course, Shiva. And he is a very devout chanter of Rudra. And every Shivaratri he chants Rudra and assiduously performs Abhishekam and other things. And unfortunately, he dislikes Pongal, which is one of my favorite dishes. It's a Vedic dish, of course. He should cultivate that. And he loves coffee. He prefers always coffee over tea. He should integrate both north and south. That's my humble suggestion. And he loves pan. And that is the product of Gupta period. And so I'm very happy with it. One personality of Sandeep is working for a cause. This one occasion, one anecdote I will bring out, I will bring in front of you. Before 15 or 20 years, when the Avarana book was released, authored by Bhairappa, it became an overnight famous book. It became viral and it became popular for so many reasons. Apart from its intrinsic merit, many people liked and many more people disliked, but whatever, it became a phenomenon. And by the time itself, Sandeep had read. Of course, he is a devout follower of Bhairappa and a voracious reader, and he likes Bhairappa to the core. He was translating for his joy. Many people will not do that. Whatever we like, we should do that. I like it, I love it, that statement. Asti brahmeti ched veda paroksham jnanam uchyate. Aham brahmasmi ched veda sakshatkarasa uchyate. So whatever he likes, he tries to materialize that. He was translating. I was knowing that. But I told, Sandeep, don't ever take that trouble. It will all go waste. As some other scholar has been assigned that job, so you need not take this trouble. Then he said, no, for my joy I will do it. In spite of knowing that it will be translated by other person, that is going to be published as it was assigned by Bhairappa himself. But it so happened, the other translation was not up to mark. Even Navratna Rajaram, he scanned through that, he reviewed that and said, this is not a good thing to publish this translation. Then Bhairappa was then fixed what to do. The translator is a renowned person whom me too knew, but what to do? It is not up to mark. Then I told Bhairappa, can you take this risk? Because this book has to be published in English. It has to come and it has to reach the larger world. Then Bhairappa contacted Sandeep. And Sandeep told, you please publish my translation in the name of that scholar. I want the book to appear for the larger public. This is what he told. Nowadays, we have many people who grab the works of others and publish in their name. He himself, like a Karna, giving it away for no rewards. Because it is a cause, it has to be done. And this is the mettle of Sandeep. And Bhairappa was not for that. He too is a person of integrity. And that was later published in Sandeep's name itself. This is how the very personality of Sandeep can be picturized in one small episode itself. He has an unalloyed respect for faith in tradition. Among my close friends, perhaps he has a greater level of belief. When we become skeptic, he is a believer. And he goes with the dictum of Vivekananda, accept first and question next. First, anything Indic, anything Sanatanic, you first accept and later question. And as a person, to the external appearance, he is a narikela. He is a coconut, hard nut to crack. But he has a lot of tender portion. Both are extremes, of course. And in many times I see my own mirror there, myself being mirrored there. Courageous and yet modest, sensitive and yet strong-willed, and enigmatic at times. Very hard to know. And even Rohini perhaps would agree with it. Very, very difficult to understand, something like a Brahmodya. In spite of knowing quite a few important personalities and being well connected, he is never a name dropper. Even people who don't even know 10% of people with whom Sandeep moves, they would become big name droppers, where Sandeep has not done that. never milks a situation to his advantage. His integrity is significant and holds a social morality in high esteem. In one word, he is a conservative to the core. Here and there we may question his criticality, but conservatism is there, and conservatism is a great protective shell. That is what I find it. Despite writing in English, his English is impeccable, and it is an epic prose. That's what I feel. So spirited and bubbling with so much of so courage, warmth, and even insight. And he has mended the language as per his desire. It is very difficult to do. It is very hard for a common Indian to manhandle English like that, but he can mend it to his purpose. And many contemporary things also he is writing. Speaking mostly about the contemporary things in public and often addressing socio-political issues, Sandeep is always rooted in our native culture. His linguistic roots are even today maintained intact. His love for Telugu or his love for Kannada, his love for our native culture is second to none. And even his understanding of Hindi is also good. Why I am saying these things? Many of the paper tigers and media tigers today, they don't have an iota of respect for our mother tongues, for our regional languages. I mean, the recent writers of India who can only use English and remain aloof with respect to their mother tongues, stay proud for their rootlessness. Sandeep stands as a positively different person. He is a practicing Hindu. Many are preaching Hindus, unlike many others who are not so, who only pontificate, but he is not. He chants Vedas, performs puja, and also Kalyanotsavas. Recently, he and Rohini performed wonderful Kalyanotsava. Unfortunately, I couldn't join them in Hole Narsipur on the sacred banks of Hemavati. Kalyanotsava. Earlier, they had performed Kalyanotsava in Ghati Subramanya, and in Bengaluru itself, Girija Kalyana. These things are very, very important. Who else, which other religion can perform marriage of the deities? They don't have family deities. The deities don't have any family, don't even have their affairs, let alone family. But our gods and goddesses, they have family, they have marriage, and we can perform marriages like their parents. He is self-motivated. This is very, very important. Don't ever look at somebody for getting encouragement or inspiration, and never selfish. He always shares the things which he has. Any information or anything academically valued, he will be sharing. As far as the Sanatana Dharma is concerned, he never loses optimism. That has only made him stay stronger even after 25 years, and I am sure that he will stay stronger even after 75 years. Those who are, though he has access to well-guarded, sensitive information as a journalist, of course, yes, I am very fond of listening to it, but he is tight-lipped. He does not use it ungraciously. In this regard, he remains tight-lipped, at times more than necessary in personal life also. Many secrets which people like me or Chunadar, we are fond of. It is a very good spice, but unfortunately, he will not give. Has no years about him, though he is hugely popular. This is very, very important. Even people who are 5%, 10% popular when compared to him, they have their own aura. Their persona has become much more than their personality. But Sandeep is not. He is even today the same Sandeep whom I saw him before 20 years. And he will remain so. Many others with such a following would have been the epitomes of attitude. Took a great risk in moving away from the MNCs where he was working, which is well paid, of course, and embracing an uncertain life as a public intellectual. It needs a lot of guts. He in a large measure is responsible for mainstreaming many words and phrases such as Sanatana, Bharatavarsha, Saptasindhu, Aryavarta consciousness, and other things. Such phrases are needed to create another alternative narrative. In public discourse, such things are very important and they have their own meaning. He has introduced to a wide section of people through the internet masters from Karnataka, such as Professor M. Hiriyanna, though he wrote in English, not many people know here. And DVG, of course, he was completely new to the other people. Though DVG wrote a lot in English, it was all of the bygone era. People of modern era, they were not knowing apart from Kannadigas, but he popularized that. And of course, great historians, Srikanta Shastri, and great writers like Devudu, Rallapalli, even Kannadigas and Andhra people had forgotten. He is constantly circulating. In that sense, he has remembered Sadasi Kathananchapya Upakrutehe, constantly referring to our sources and being grateful to them, has received innumerable brickbats and few bouquets, but remains unaffected. Nakhyati labha purjartham granthosmabhirudiyate swabodha parishuddhyartham brahmavin nikashasmasu, as Sureshwaracharya said. That is his dictum. Naturally, his style of writing reflects his personality. If style is person, that is so. To draw from Sanskrit poetics, his style is Dakshinatya, Utpreksha Dakshinatyanam, an elevated look and a bombastic style, which personally I like. I like that Vojo Guna, and he has a lot of that Vojas Deepti and Vojas Samasa Bhuyastvam. The aspect of brilliance is as well seen, and Hari will be doing greater justice to this topic. That's why I will not touch his topic. And he has bent English, of course, to his requirement. His strength mainly lies with Rohini, a great pillar of support. She is a wonderful Grihini, friend, and a true Grihini of our times. And with 3 verses which I wrote earlier, and I dedicated one of my books, Arsha Kavyagala Nudibedagu, the idiomatic and the alankaric beauty of Vyasa and Valmiki in 4 long essays. That book was dedicated to Sandeep. It is my way of showing affection and love to my friends by dedicating whatever little I could do. This is the smallest thing that I can do from my side. And I read out the 3 dedicatory verses, one in Sanskrit, one in Kannada, and one, of course, in Telugu, which he too loves like me. Sandeepa Deepayasi Bharata Supradeepa Diprarchisha Pratipadam Nijabhava Deepam Snehanvitena Shubhavarti Dasha Mukhena Tenastute Hridaya Sadma Samidha Kanti. May you live like a lamp, master lamp, which will lit other lamps also, and yet will not lose any shining or luster or life. That's how, like a lamp, you may live forever. Vojo bija bhavam swajanma vasudha premalavalanvitam vyajatitam vichara vari vihitam bhasha balodbalyadim rajikkum bhavadiya bhavya vachana vyakhyana vadadrumam sajam kshatra phala prasuna sahitam sahitya suryadritam. You are writing like a tree, wish-fulfilling tree, may grow forever, like the tree which grows in the spring season, and the seed is Vojas, brilliance, and then the bed of it, in Kannada we call Pati, Alavala in Sanskrit. Love for the country is the bed of it, and then the water is nothing but the thoughts, and language has been used as a manure to nurture it, and that will yield Kshatra Phala Prasunam, the valor, Kshatra, that is the fruit which we are going to beget. And may that be tasted by all the Suris, all the scholars and needed people. Kalimi lemulandu kalata nundakayundi chelimilandu gunde balimiyandu kalupu golupuganu velugundu mi suhrid janulayandu sadhu janulayandu. Your love, warmth and sincerity, because any friend, after a long time, one or other times will be fighting. In spite of several scores of fighting, if friendship stays intact, that is real friendship. It's not fragile. Sandeep's friendship is not fragile. I value that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ganesh. In his inimitable way, he passed through Annamaya Kosha all the way to Anandamaya Kosha. Of course, segueing from Manomaya and Vijnanamaya also. May I request please Sri Shakaranta to please come on stage and give Dr. Ganesh with a small token of our respect. I request Sri Hari Ravi Kumar to please come on stage. Hari. One second, I'll introduce. Please have a seat. One nimsha.
What a musical chair. Without
We now have Hari Ravikumar talking about Sandeep's various facets as a writer, editor, socio-political commentator. Interestingly for us, it was Sandeep and Hari Ravikumar who came together to start the Preksha website in 2016. So it has come a full circle. Hari is an author, translator, editor, designer, violinist, and publisher. And despite being so accomplished, he considers himself firmly lodged in the camp of Utsaha Prachara. His Utsaha, we must agree, is indeed infectious, and we at Preksha consider him our grand old man. Sandeep is saying he's older than time, and he is the high torque engine that drives our humble wagon. I request Hari to please stop.
Om Tat Sat. Good morning, friends. It's a great pleasure for me to be invited here to speak a few words about my good friend Sandeep, speaking about several other aspects of his contribution. I'm in a very unenviable position to speak after Dr. Ram Sharma and Dr. Ganesh. Whatever I wanted to say, time and again, I was sitting next to Chandru and Vikram, and we are like, whatever we have prepared, already both of them have exhausted, leaving us very little to say. A word that was said multiple times by Dr. Sharma and a couple of times by Ganesh sir is courage. Now, in the Dasha Lakshana of Dharma, Manu starts off by saying Dhriti Kshama Damo Astiyam. The first word is Dhriti. In the last story of the Simhasana Dvatrimsika, I'm sure all of you know this, there is the great Simhasana of the legendary Vikramaditya, and Raja Bhoja aims to sit on that throne. Every time he wants to sit, one of the 32 puppets comes and tells a story of the greatness of Vikramaditya. The last story is one which is very interesting. I will request your indulgence for a few minutes and tell you this story. A statue maker, a sculptor, comes to King Vikramaditya and says, I have made the statue of like a Apashakuna Murti. It is a statue of ill omen. So nobody is buying it. I am a poor sculptor. So Vikramaditya says, okay, here he gives him Aksharam, Pratyaksharam, Laksham, Dadav, that kind of style. He gives him a lot of money and gets this statue of ill omen, places it in his bedroom. That night he is feeling very uncomfortable, dizzy, nauseous, and finally there is a energy that emerges out of him and says and takes the form of Lakshmi. And this Devi says, ever since you started ruling the kingdom, I was filling your coffers and your treasury. Now that you have got this statue, I am leaving you. Vikramaditya says, okay, let it be. Then after some time, a brilliant energy comes from his mind and takes the shape of Devi Saraswati. And she says, ever since you started your Aksharabhyasa, I have been lodging in your mind, and I am the source of all your knowledge. But now that you have got this statue, I am leaving you. So Vikramaditya says, okay. Finally, he gets a lot of weakness in his right arm, and one energy emerges from his right hand and takes the shape of Hanuman. And says, the reason why you could lift your great sword was because I was lodging in your right arm from the day one. Now that you have got the statue, I will go away. But Vikramaditya is too tired and too maybe also conceited to hold on to this guy. He says, go your way. Then finally an energy emerges from his heart and says, I am Dhriti, I am courage. The moment your heart started beating, I was there in your heart. Now that you have got the statue, I am going away from here. Then Vikramaditya does something unexpected. He jumps and latches on to him, says, anything can go away but not courage. So he says, courage, I will not let you go. That is the importance of courage in the face of any danger. And once courage comes back, Hanuman comes back to him, Saraswati comes back, Lakshmi comes back to him. So that story is very reminiscent when I think of the selfless work that Sandeep has done over 25 years. And I think Dr. Ram Sharma has very well mentioned the kind of adverse circumstances that were there when he started off in the late 90s, early 2000s. first with seriously Sandeep, then with the rediscovery of India. All this was during a time when the entire ecosystem was against us. And even today, the situation is not that comfortable, not that rosy, to the extent that even very recently, Sandeep's podcast with Ranveer Ahlabadi, the beer biceps guy, after that, he faced a lot of flack and for his comments. So even today, although like Dr. Ram Sharma said, political establishment might be somewhat secure, but the entire ecosystem is waiting for an opportunity to, hunt down and thrash anybody speaking in favor of Sanatana Dharma. So Sandeep wears many hats. He's at once a columnist, he's an author, a socio-political commentator, translator, editor, creative writer. So much so that we have forgotten that he had a very glorious career in the IT industry. For more than almost, I think, 20 years, he was in the IT industry, most recently at Honeywell. That part of it is forgotten. For him to leave that and come here, what is there? I wonder, what is there in it for him? What is the so what is the benefit he's going to get? Because he's a very good career, 20 years in Honeywell, fantastic salary and everything, and Cisco and all these places. What is there that is he's not going to get any great money from this? He's not going to get any great name, but purely like Ganesh sir was saying, that love for the country and Rashtra and that vision, that is the one which is driving him and taking him forward. No, I was following his blog, Rediscovery of India, but I met him first when he was running a very nice journal called India Facts. So my first relationship with Sandeep, of course, as a friend, but more than that, as an editor and as a writer. So along with Ganesh sir, I wrote some of the articles for India Facts. When Sandeep came out of India Facts, then we were discussing, why don't we start something new? We should write something. At that time, I was also kind of unemployed, trying to do something new. Then we discussed with our mentor Ganesh sir. He said, why do you want to reinvent the wheel? There is already, Preksha was a very successful blog started in 2011 by Sri Shah and Raghavendra Hebbalu, some of our friends. They had started this as a blog, which came out of Ramchandra's study circle. Then why don't we take that and take it forward, make it into a full-fledged journal? That is how 2016, Sandeep and me, along with Ganesh sir and few other friends, we restarted Preksha in a sense. Then after that, after a few years of working with Preksha, more people came in. Then we went on our own ways. He went more focused into the socio-political, environment, writing about what is happening today and also some of the other aspects of history and popular culture. Preksha is more an academic journal which is focusing specifically on civilizational issues and with a lot of deep scholarship. So he branched into Dharma Dispatched and I branched into Praharsha. But even then we are all associated together, we are all working for the same cause without stepping on each other's toes and collaborating to wherever possible. Now, at a time when there was no support and there were very few voices, Sandeep was one of the very roaring voices around. And today, we see that in Sandeep's own terminology, there are a group of people called the post-2014 Hindus. Okay, so the post-2014 Hindus today are very popular. You can see them in all the Samavesh and wearing a shawl and everything. But long before that, Sandeep has been writing and he has been speaking about the ghastly reality of Hindus long before it became fashionable. On the one hand, he represents the school of powerful writing on boiling issues of the Hindu society represented by savants like Ram Swarup, Sitaram Goyal, Arun Shauri, Conrad Elst, N.S. Rajaram, David Frawley, he represents that civilizational continuity. On the other hand, he represents the school of poignant writings on remarkable highlights of the Hindu society represented by scholars like D.V. Gundappa, S. Srikanta Shastri, S.R.Ramaswamy, Shatavadhani Ganesh and others. So this is very difficult to balance. On the one side, he is pointing out the harsh realities. At the same time, he has not dried his spirit so much that he is unable to see the beauties in our society. So many of the articles in Dharma Dispatch highlight the very, very poignant and heart-touching episodes from the Indian history. And you just see the range of topics So hair dyes and perfumes, so one fragrant history of perfumes. Then on the history of the nose ring, which got a lot of attention at some point. Then on various types of food, the latest on idli, the history of idli. Then on variety of films, how the entire, the Bollywood, which, some of our people on Twitter call it Urdu wood, which is probably even better name for it, how it has been working against the Hindu community in multiple ways. A lot of analysis of various movies and how the hidden agenda, he has exposed that in his writings. Then not only that, lot about culture, philosophy, music, biographical sketches, a study of the epics, interpretation of the epics in the light of today's episodes. So a lot of these things he has written about, but at the very core he highlights the sleazy world of anti-India forces, which means anti-Hindu forces. Time and again he calls their bluffs, he upbraids them for their double standards, and he exposes their vicious agenda. Whether he writes a critique of T.M. Krishna and Romila Thapar, or whether he criticizes the mainstream media and the political class, again and again he underscores their adharma and their violation of the basic principle that Sanatana Dharma holds dear. And the triad of what Ram Sharma said, which I call the 3M, my co-author Dr. Sri Krishna gave this terminology, which I use very frequently: the missionaries, the mullahs, and the Marxists. Now to this 3M we have to add a 4th M, which is something which is related to wokeism. They are taking it a step further. Through his relentless pursuit of vignettes from Indian history, often extracted from dust-covered tomes hiding in libraries and archives, he has brought to light heart-wrenching and heart-touching episodes of our history for the benefit of the common reader. And he writes with a view of culturally educating his audience and not as a mere collector of shocking facts. In addition to his writings, he has also recorded several podcasts and interviews that reaches out to people who are not having the habit of reading. So on Dharma Dispatch itself, and in fact even I had recorded a few podcasts with him on the situation in Tamil Nadu, the Dravidian politics and things like that. So a lot of podcasts, he interacts with a lot of prominent people and a lot of videos on YouTube, especially helpful for people who are not having the habit of reading. Many years ago, I remember Ganesh sir was once asking Sandeep, how did you cultivate this wonderful writing style? Did you go to some writing school, or what is the secret? He said the secret is reading good quality pulp fiction. So that is where he has picked up his writing style. By reading all the great authors of pulp fiction, he has picked up his writing style, which is very powerful, it is very engaging. Not once when you start reading an article, this is I have seen many times, you start reading an article or some essay of his, it is very difficult to stop midway. Even though we have so many distractions, we want to finish the entire piece because it takes you in and it doesn't let you go at all. That is the nature of his writing. And whatever I say, it will only be certain kind of expression of, it only exhibit my inability to use language. So I will just read out a short passage of what he has written, which is a critical study of the cinematic works of K. Vishwanath, which is what Ganesh sir also mentioned. A very beautiful, I think, 3 or 4 part essay, which details the study of the cinematic works of K. Vishwanath. Sandeep writes about Shankarabharanam, the movie classic, heralded an unprecedented artistic departure and marked a fresh beginning in K. Vishwanath's prolific cinematic career lasting more than 5 decades. Until Shankarabharanam, Vishwanath had only made social movies, debuting with the 1965 super hit Atma Gauravam. With Shankarabharanam, he had pleasantly stunned the nation with a musical and cultural triumph on celluloid. Few movies have delivered such widespread cultural and social impact as Shankarabharanam when we considered the fact that almost every scene, every song, every dialogue became a staple household diet in South Indian homes. In an era when the phrase pan-Indian film is being tossed around with thoughtlessness and fact-free impunity, it is important to remind such folks that Shankarabharanam arguably remains one of the finest pan-Indian movies. The lyrics of the movie's opening song, Omkara Nadanu Sadhanam, was retained as is when it was dubbed in Malayalam with zero loss in translation and audience appreciation. In fact, Shankarabharanam's success in Kerala almost rivaled its blockbuster status in Telugu. Almost overnight, the film reopened the eyes of Indians to the greatness of their own classical musical heritage. In the realm of art, great exaggerations contain abiding truths in their womb. Kumbhakarna's biannual ritual of waking up counts as one such exaggeration. Likewise, Shankarabharanam awakened the masses, especially in South India, from their cultural slumber. A real-life consequence of this awakening was the immediate spike in the number of people enrolling for classical music lessons. Now, this is a piece that he wrote about 4 or 5 years back. The movie Shankarabharanam came out in 1980. And when the movie came out, Sandeep was 6 years old. So imagine if this was written by somebody who is 70 years old, who has seen the cultural context of the time as a personal experience. It is still remarkable, but it is something from experience. But for Sandeep to recreate that cultural and the social milieu of that time by his reading, by his discussion with elders, by his own understanding of the culture, that is really remarkable. I think it is easy for us to talk about present day, to talk about what is happening around us, but to recreate a cultural aspect, a social milieu of a time before our when we were young or before our period, that requires a lot of perceptiveness, and that shows his connectiveness to the previous generations. It is somebody, only a very well-rooted person can write something like this. There is one episode I thought, I had just marked it in the side, I thought Ganesh sir will mention, but now that I have the opportunity to speak about it. 2011, 4 friends, I'm sure I'm stealing what Vikram is going to say, but a few things. Srisha, Vikram, Ganesh sir and Sandeep had gone on a trip to Rajasthan. Then after Rajasthan they came, so when they were also planning to go to Gujarat. So what happened was, all the Rajasthan trip, I think other people were preparing everything. The moment, whenever it comes to Gujarat, Sandeep said, don't worry, I will take care. And sometimes Sandeep can be seen as irresponsible. So Ganesh sir was always worried. He's saying he will take care, I don't know what is going to happen. Solpa now nodkombanappa yeno ido. Then finally, when they landed in the train station, from the moment they put their foot on Gujarat soil, the chief minister's office had sent people, completely they were escorted, everything was taken care, and they had a chance to meet Modi, who was then the chief minister of Gujarat. For 42 minutes they spoke. But the interesting thing is, as they were entering, now what would chief minister of a state, today Modi is very big, at that point of time he was the chief minister of state, still well known. What would be the normal response if some people come? Namaste, very happy to meet you, something. The first thing that Modi said when he looked at Sandeep is, Kya Sandeep bhai, bahut din ho gaye, nahi milte aajkal. So this is the response that Modi had. But that is not what I intended to say. It's as a matter of fact. But what is more interesting is, during the trip, all through the trip, I think Srisha and Ganesh sir were roommates, and Vikram and Sandeep were roommates.
To manage him.
Many times in the middle of the night, Vikram he's a very good sleeper, he doesn't get awoken very easily, but sometimes in the middle of the night he will wake up to see Sandeep sitting and furiously typing away at the keyboard. So this is the sort of, dedication. They have gone on a holiday, in the middle of the night sitting and writing an article. How Sandeep is so prolific, this is just one small example of the dedication that Sandeep has. And finally, just to put everything together, a small, in a nutshell, I would describe Sandeep as somebody who is endowed with courage that comes from conviction, courting controversy, uncovering conspiracies, but constantly committed to the cause. And it is my belief that this is not even a halfway mark for him. He has written a great deal over the years, but with increasing maturity, his writings will only further improve and reach a wider audience, and I wish him all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Hari, for that wonderful presentation. May I request Sri KBS Ramchandra to please come on stage and present Hari with a token of our appreciation and respect. I request Sri Arjun Bharadwaj to please come on stage. Hari spoke in his capacity as Sandeep's friend and also as a scholar himself. Thank you, Hari, once again. We next have the pleasure of hearing Sri Arjun Bharadwaj, who will highlight Sandeep's contribution in his capacity as a translator and the author of creative works. Arjun is one of Preksha's contributing editors. He is widely sought after for his expertise in Natya Shastra, temple traditions of India, and comparative aesthetics. He is also a polyglot who holds a master's degree in German and Sanskrit. He has authored, translated, and edited several works that have garnered wide readership. And looking at Arjun's energy and the enormity of his literary output, we are sure that he is, like his Mahabharata namesake, both Savyasachi and Gudakesha. I invite Arjun.
Thanks a lot for your very kind words, Shashi. It's a great privilege to be here speaking with you all on the occasion of Sandeep Balakrishna's 50th birthday. I've been extremely inspired, and if I'm a Gudakesha and a hard worker, one of the inspirations is Sandeep Balakrishna, for sure. Like Shashi mentioned a few minutes back, and like Hari mentioned as well, the Preksha as an institution, it was started, inspired by, of course, Shatavadani Dr. R. Ganesh. It was inactive for a couple of years, almost a decade, I must say. And it was the inspiration provided by Sandeep Balakrishna that it rejuvenated, it restarted, it has reached the place it is today. In fact, when Sandeep and Hari, they approached Shashi and me to become the contributing editors of the Preksha Pratishtana, both of us were very diffident. They put in a lot of effort to even convince us to come on the board, and now they have left it to us to run the institution. Of course, G.S. Raghavendra is there, and we have got our beloved trustees. But then it was the inspiration derived from Sandeep Balakrishna, the direction given by Sandeep Balakrishna, how the website should be, how the search engine optimization should be, what should be the rate at which we publish articles, what should be the length of articles, what should be the array of languages that we use, what should be the topics covered. All these, the guidance was received from Sandeep Balakrishna. Honestly saying, I don't think even Ganesh could have, Dr. Ganesh could have given that kind of guidance of maintaining an online journal, an online academic journal. Of course, without Shatavadani Dr. R. Ganesh, our lives would have been meaningless, directionless, etc. The content he would give us, but then how to make it visible to the audience and how to present it in an impactful manner, all those lessons were derived from Sandeep Balakrishna. All of us have been greatly benefited in his company. And one other thing, before I go to the topic assigned to me, I would like to mention, every year, almost like a ritual, I have been teaching courses on the temple art, architecture, and iconography through the Vibhu Academy. Dr. Arti VB and Sri Shashi Kaundinya, both of them are here. They spearhead the Vibhu Academy. So at the end, I would have spoken for nearly 20-25 hours, and Dr. Arti VB speaks for about 4 hours in the temples course. I speak about architecture, art, iconography, Puranas, and the dance traditions, the music traditions, the literary traditions connected with temples, etc. But then, at the end of those entire series, Sandeep Balakrishna delivers 2 lectures, 2 very, very important lectures. One about the Islamic invasion and the Christian invasion, the kind of impact it had on the temple traditions of India, and the post-independence, the kind of trouble that our temples have faced. The kind of impact these 2 lectures of Sandeep Balakrishna have on the audience, see, so far, I think it would not be an exaggeration, nearly about 1,000 or 1,500 people have attended the Devalaya course, which is taught both in English and Kannada. But the impact that Sandeep's lectures have, which is completely factual, true to history, and with absolutely no exaggeration, but spiritual in its content and spiritually driven. So the kind of impact it has is that many people have shed tears listening to Sandeep's lectures. And it has inspired the Vibhu Academy to come up with an organization called the Vibhu Academy Charitable Trust, and inspired by Sandeep's lecture, they have taken up the responsibility of rejuvenating an entire temple in Ummattur, close to Bangalore. One lecture, one speaker can have this kind of impact. So Sandeep Balakrishna had told us that it was that temple in Ummattur, Bhujangeshwara temple, from where Krishnadevaraya used to start his Digvijaya Yatras, Dharma Vijaya Yatras, used to get started from there. So when we are aggrandizing and glorifying temples so much, we should also take the responsibility of protecting the temple culture. It should not just be museum pieces. So that is what he keeps on impressing upon. And that one lecture has inspired so many people. And as soon as that lecture was over, Dr. Aarti and Shashi ji were telling us, thousands and in lakhs donations poured into the Vibhu Academy Charitable Trust, and that entire regeneration activity of the temple, not just the architecture or the sculptures, but also the rituals, also providing some kind of life and livelihood for the Purohita, the Archaka there. All that has been happening, and it has been headed by the Dampatis there, the couple there. So this is the kind of impact that Sandeep can have even in private classes, even in private lectures. It's been really inspiring. Sandeep as a translator, I am sure most of you know that he has translated two extraordinary novels of S.L. Bhairappa, Dr. Padma Bhushan, Dr. S.L. Bhairappa. One is Avarana, the wheel. The wheel, the translation itself is a metaphor. The wheel, the word itself is a metaphor. The Kannada original title is also very symbolic. How truth has been veiled, how beauty has been veiled, how Shiva has been veiled. Satya, Shiva, Sundara, all the three have been veiled because of Avarana Kavidide, because of the Islamic invasion. So that is the theme of the novel. It's a very popular novel. Dr. S.L. Bhairappa said, with Sandeep's translation of the wheel, Avarana, coming in, he has been able to break through the iron curtain of the English market. Dr. S.L. Bhairappa got a stance in the English readers' minds because of the excellent translation of the Avarana. Even before Avarana was translated, other novels of S.L. Bhairappa were already translated. For example, The Parva was by K. Raghavendra Rao, and Dr. S.R.Ramaswamy, a very great scholar and a very good professor of English who was educated in the West. He had translated the Sartha as Caravan. Sartha, it was published from the Oxford University Press, and Tantu was also translated by S. Ramaswamy. And L.V. Shantkumari, Professor L.V. Shantkumari, she had translated a few novels and they were published as well. The autobiography of Bhairappa was also translated. But then the kind of impact that Sandeep's writing, Sandeep's translation did, so Bhairappa was extremely grateful to him. He has been constantly expressing gratitude to Sandeep Balakrishna because of this particular translation of Avarana, S.L. Bhairappa got a name in the English market, in the English industry. Until then, he was, of course, very popular in Kannada. He was popular in S.L. Bhairappa's works were read in Marathi, in Gujarati, in Hindi, in Bengali. Several other languages they were read, but in English it was Sandeep who made a mark. For a translator, it's very important to understand the original language, and it's not just about understanding the language. See, I might understand the English language, but then somebody gives me a text on finance or something related to biology. If I don't understand the subject, I won't be able to translate it. Even though I might be able to intellectually understand it, if my heart is not with the subject, I won't be able to translate it. But whenever Sandeep takes up a translation, he's thorough with what the original says. He completely falls in love with the topic, the subject, the theme of the novel or the technical work that he's translating. He thoroughly goes through the work multiple times. He has told me, he has guided me in my own translations. So he thoroughly goes through the work multiple times. Then he reimagines the work in the language into which he has to put it, so into the English language. See, many people, what they do is that when they translate from Kannada to English, especially the two are orthogonally perpendicular to each other. Absolutely no commonality between the Kannada language or the English language. Kannada language is very deeply rooted in the Indian culture, and English is only alien to Indian culture. So when you have to put it across to these two languages where both are diametrically opposite to each other, it's a very, very great challenge, especially something which is so culturally rooted. So he reimagines the work in the new language into which he is putting it, into the English language in this case, and then he writes it thoroughly. So that is what we see here. He reimagines the novel, he reimagines page-wise, adhyaya-wise, and the entire novel itself, and that is why when a reader reads the Avarana, his translation of Avarana, or he reads a person reads the translation of Tabbalu Neenade Magane, which he has titled as Orphaned, we get the feeling as though Bhairappa has actually written it in the English language. We wouldn't even get the feel that it is a translation, as though it's an original work. We get that kind of feel. And thereafter, after the Avarana came, so the first edition was in 2014. Thereafter, it has seen 15 reprints in the English language. 21 reprints. Sorry, I haven't updated myself. 15 was the number 3 years back. Now 21 reprints it has found. And that is this is the novel which has been reprinted the highest number of times in any language other than Kannada. And then, after that, Dr. S.L. Bhairappa gained so much of trust in Sandeep's language and his caliber that anybody else who translated his novels, S.L. Bhairappa's novels, into the English language, it had to pass through the test, Sandeep's test, the golden test. It had to go through that. So Dr. S.L. Bhairappa himself had asked me to translate his novel, Yana. So when I translated it, so Bhairappa was like, only if Sandeep agrees with it, only if he approves it, then I'll go ahead with considering its publication. So I showed the manuscript to Sandeep after having translated it, and he sat with me for 5 full days in this Dialogues Cafe in JP Nagar on the Ring Road. So we used to sit. I was amazed by his stamina. See, it is not even his own work. He's trying to help me. He's trying to guide me. And the novel of S.L. Bhairappa, Nyana, is quite good. But then, compared to his other masterpieces, it's not that such an inspiring read. Because the stalwart had requested me, I had translated it. But then, even when the story is kind of not so appealing, even it just as a duty consciousness, and to guide a youngster, Rishi Runa, both of us have that feeling of Rishi Runa, a Maharshi. S.L. Bhairappa is the Maharshi living in our times today. Out of Rishi Runa, he sat with me, and every sentence he analyzed and he taught me how it has to be done, how it can be mended, how it can be corrected, etc. The art of translating, I owe it to Sandeep Balakrishna and of course my dear friend Hari Ravikumar. Both of them have been guiding me extremely well from the onset. The other novel, Tabbalu Neenade Magane, it has been translated, the title itself is called Orphaned. Tabbalu Neenade Magane. You have already become Agibittidiya. Hagagi Orphaned anno sheershike kuda, it is very apt. See, this is also a fantastic work. In fact, this was the first novel of S.L. Bhairappa I read in my life, some 20 years back. And yesterday, I read the entire English translation once again. It was the same feeling what I got 20 years back when I read the original. Yesterday, when I read the translation, absolutely no loss in translation, absolutely no loss in the spirit. Especially, there are these idiomatic expressions in Kannada, baigulagalu, some foul language, etc., vulgar language. And also there are these culturally connected elements, culturally connected aspects, etc., which it would be really challenging to translate it into an alien language like English. But the manner in which Sandeep has managed it is fantastic. He has retained the original terms like Kalyani, Puja, or Govu, Gorakshane, Dakshina, etc. All those he has retained. And whenever possible, he has explained what the term means in a small phrase. And sometimes in some other works, he has given a glossary as well. So it gives the native Indian feel. It does not lose the latent Indian feel, but it captures the spirit, the flavor of the English language. So to balance these two is extremely difficult. I've seen other translators, other senior translators, where when you read the translation, it feels like you're reading Kannada. It doesn't even have the English flavor. So this is a very important art, a very great art of translation. So that is what Sandeep has very beautifully cultivated. And he loves these two novels so much, he has deeply appreciated them. We get to know that when we see two of his essays in the volume called Nirlipti, which was compiled by Dr. Ganesh and a few others. He has written an article on Avarana, creative literary appreciation of the Avarana, creative literary appreciation of the Tappaliyuni Nadimagane, very insightful articles. And in addition to that, he has been translating many other works as well. In a compilation called The Evolution of Mahabharata and Other Writings on the Epic by Dr. S.R.Ramaswamy, which was primarily translated by Hari Ravindkumar and myself. A couple of articles were translated by Sandeep Balakrishna. And there he has written a fantastic note on Dr. S.R. Ramaswamy, Acharya Dr. S.R. Ramaswamy. The subtitle, the subtopics there and the language there, it's very, very beautiful. That's an extraordinary tribute, really, a very heart-touching tribute that Sandeep has offered to Dr. S.R. Ramaswamy. Interested people may have a look at that as well. He has translated one complete volume called Vaidika Dharma Sampradayastharu, originally authored by Dr. T.V. Gundappa. It's a part of the Gnapaka Chitrashale series, the fourth of the volumes. There, completely, it has been translated. And a year ago, Dr. RTVB had introduced that book in this particular stage. Interested people may kindly have a look at that recording. And it is very important to procure the book and go through the book. If you are able to read the Kannada, nothing like DVG's Kannada prose. But if you cannot understand Kannada, then Sandeep's translation makes ample justice, does ample justice. He has also translated a couple of essays of Dr. R. Ganesh from the compilation Pankti Pavanaru that have been published in the Dharma Dispatch as well. So now, while this is Sandeep as a translator, another dimension to his personality is his creative writings. I'm sure he has been trying his hand on creative writing, short stories, novellas, novelettes, etc. from quite a number of decades. I've had the access, I had the privilege of reading 3 of his novels, stories. So one of them is Soya Mirittigala Serapali. So this is a short story written in the Kannada language. So here he addresses a certain period in time, which was a period of history, that historical period where Hoysalas were ruling, and their Samantarajas were the Nolambas who ruled around the Kolar and Bengaluru region in the ancient period. So that was the time when Muhammad Ghori had attacked, Muhammad Ghazni had also attacked, and all the Rajputs and the people in Rajasthan, they have faced the burnt of the battle. And this Sarapali, that chain itself is a metaphor. We are being civilizationally chained. So that is what he tries to indicate. So the sadhus and the kshatriyas from there, they are constantly repenting that we were the frontier warriors. We were the border warriors. But we did not stop this invasion and our Somnath temple has been destroyed. So those people from there, from the north, they come to the south and they caution the South Indian rulers, the Hoysalas, the Nolambas and the other Samantarajas, that don't do the mistake that we did. See, this flow of consciousness within the landscape of India. So when there is a threat in some part of the country, that idea is circulated throughout the country and there is this cautioning and warning which spreads around the country. So that is the particular theme. And there again, he brings these metaphors of how Dharma Vijaya was the ideal of the Indian kings. However, what they are doing is Asura Vijaya. Whatever was Mahasmashana Kashi has actually become a Smashana today. He says, Mahasmashana is the Mokshadaini, Avimukta Kshetra, Kashi, Kashate Kashi. It is a brilliant place. But now today, it has completely been reduced into a Smashana, Mahasmashana becoming Smashana. So these repetitive ideas he brings about in that story. Soya Mirittigala Sarapali, a very beautiful one. Here, from the language and the style, etc., the influence of Dr. S.L. Bhairappa is very clear. I'm sure he has been influenced and inspired by Masti Venkatesh Iyengar, Tarasu, and Dr. R. Ganesh, of course. And another novel by him is the Dutavakya. This Dutavakya takes as its raw material a period after this, a period after the invasion of Muhammad Ghazni and Ghori, the rule of Jahangir, the Mughal Emperor Jahangir, and at the same time the European invasion is happening into the country. See, he is a very good historian amongst his many different facets. He is an historian as well. In history, while only facts are presented, through this novel, he is trying to present the value from that. As in, what were the emotions of people? What were the aspirations of people? How the aspirations were killed. And in the Dutavakya, the very name Dutavakya, I suppose, is inspired by a name of a play by Bhasa, one of the early playwrights attributed to Bhasa, Dutavakya. It's inspired by that, I suppose. So there he shows how the Indians were showing this soft resistance, and how the Islamic and the European invasions were brutal onto the society. And the main predominant rasas here are Bibhatsa and Bhayanaka. To sustain a nearly 150-200 page novel based on only Bibhatsa and Bhayanaka is a very, very great challenge, especially when there is hardly any semblance of Shungara. Whatever is Shungara is only Shungara Bhasa, Adharmik Shungara, whatever we find here. And Hasya Bhasa, it is very unhealthy, cheap Hasya that we find, of course, in the Islamic rule. That is what you can imagine. So to sustain a novel of this size with this theme is a great challenge. He has achieved it very beautifully. And lastly, I would recommend all of you to give this a read. A day in the life of a chapati. So the main character here is called Zalil Chapati. It's a caricature, it's a socio-political satire on the character of Zalil Tripathi. Zalil Tripathi is the person. Here we come across characters named Lobha Ray, Randy Chronicler, Goljana Joy, Million Mad Pimple. I guess all of you can relate to who these actual characters are. Dramachandra Chuha. Okay, he was called Drama, apparently. And also see Lobha. Lobha is one of the Arishad Vargas. So that is the name of a character. Who is the real character in real life? So I guess most of you would have guessed. So to take a contemporary issue and to caricature it and to make it a creative work of art is extremely challenging. A very beautiful job has been done by Sandeep in this work as well. I'll just read a poem that he has written as a part of this novel. A leftist lady in a very grand Shangri-La, she comes and she reads out this poem, and she has a curated audience, and there's a standing applause for this poem. I am the black grassland that does not grow. I am the black weed you smoke and get your highs while I am low. I am the black night. You must see the font size also here, the stretches, etc. Black night. Inside my emptiness lies fright. That I do with my blackness fight. We must all of us fight for our right. This is the poem. It gets a standing applause. So we must all give a great applause to Sandeep for putting his step forward in this creative domain as well. Looking forward to many more creative works from Sandeep Balakrishna. Hari Ravi Kumar and myself would like to take your leave. Dr. S.L. Bhairappa has called us for another event. We'll have to rush there. I'm really privileged for having gotten this opportunity to speak on this occasion. Namaste.
I request Srisha to please come on stage and present Arjun with a small token. Arjun spoke very well. It was a Soda Harana Bhashana, and we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Arjun Bharadwaj. May I now request Sri Chandrasekhar K.S. to please come on stage. This is perhaps the first time that Chandru is getting on stage as part of the Preksha program. Chandrasekhar KS is a senior architect at SAP Labs. He is one of Preksha Pratishtana's trustees. He is an avid traveler. Not only does he travel, but he drives everywhere himself. He has driven to faraway places from Kanyakumari to Khajuraho, so you can imagine the extent. He has, in terms of literature, the perfect aesthetic taste and a fine feel for language. He doesn't look his age, but acts much beyond it. Dr. Ganesh is fond of calling Chandru as Aklishta Karma, one who works incessantly and does his job well, but does not make a fuss of it. To see a live demonstration, I request Chandru to please speak a few words.
Thank you so much. I'm privileged, of course. But frankly, I do not know how and why I'm here. It just happened that one day Dr. Ganesh called me and he kind of assigned this job to me, and somehow I could not say no at that time. So yeah, all the speakers before me, they have been great academicians and scholars. No? Scholars. So I have to start with a disclaimer. I am no scholar. Okay, so whatever I'm going to be speaking on is going to be just a very common man, layman. No, not really, sir. So just a common man, layman reading of very scholarly works of Sandeep Balakrishna. So the topic that has been assigned to me is political and cultural history of India. Okay. So the corpus of writing of Sandeep in this area, political and cultural history, is enormous, is very vast. And to be able to talk about all of these is impossible. So I am going to be primarily drawing from 3 works of Sandeep: 70 Years of Secularism, 10 Lessons from Hindu History in 10 episodes, and Stories from Inscriptions. These are the 3 works, very, very important works, very, very interesting and very, very enlightening, educative works of Sandeep Balakrishna. So I will start first with the 70 years of secularism itself. So Sandeep calls it 70 years of secularism, unpopular essays on the unofficial political religion of India. We will see why he does that. It's fantastic. Just the topic name, just the name of the the book is very interesting. So what exactly is this secularism? As Sandeep himself says, this book is actually an exercise in stock taking. A stock taking from 1947, that is when India actually got independence, to 2017. That 2017 was when the first edition of the book was released. And again, there has been another edition, revised edition, about 3 or 4 years later, I think 2021, and a reprint in 2022. So this is a stock taking of about 70 or 75 years of India's history. So this is a series of essays, a series of about 22, 23 essays, which explores this secularism, what this really means, and how this secularism has manifested in every facet of Hindu society and our lives. So we really can't find a single definition or a simple definition of this secularism anywhere in this book, because it is complex. This word secularism is probably the most polymorphic, the most amorphous, most plastic, most abused word. And this has become so permeating that all of our lives, all of our facets of our life has been, affected by secularism. So, but even if you really cannot define this word secularism, there is one, standout feature of secularism. That is, this is primarily against Hindu culture. This is what the author says. It says secularism is essentially against Hindus, and it is one of the vilest form of religious appeasement. So Dr. Frawley has written the foreword to this book. That's an excellent foreword. There he examines this secularism. And in examining this secularism, he says, anything that is simply a way to condemn Hinduism or Hindus becomes secularism. So he goes on to say, anything that is anti-Hindu, which basically has no identity or purpose than to keep Hindu, India and Hindus from awakening and exerting any power politically, intellectually or culturally. This is what is, secularism. This is probably what kind of summarizes this secularism. Going to this, the title of the book itself, Sandeep actually calls it the unofficial political religion of India. The irony of this is very apparent. So the secular, this meaning of the word secular, essentially originally meant to kind of differentiate politics from religion. So not differentiate, but to keep religion and politics separate. So this was the original meaning of secularism. But if secularism itself becomes the political religion, we know what is happening. This is exactly what has happened in our country. This continues to, have very profound effects on our lives in everyday life. So basically, what Sandeep does in this book, he puts together a series of series of essays, very, very profound essays, examining this nature of secularism and examining the many, many facets of how our Hindu life, our Hindu culture, our Hindu way of life has been systematically destroyed. So he puts them all together into, a series of 22 articles, fantastic ones, very, very enlightening, and we know that, okay, something is not right. We know that we have been hijacked. We know that the educational institutions have been hijacked. But how have they been able to do this? What is the machination? What is the modus operandi? How do we really overcome this? How do we fight the system? So the way Sandeep has done this, of course, he has demonstrated through his writings and through his lives already, and the speakers before me have already spoken eloquently about it. But you can see this in this one book. Okay, so he very, with a lot of humility, he says, these essays are simply contemporary echoes of past masters who have captured the true spirit and essence of India's civilizational and cultural genius. Very true. It may be just echoes of the past masters, but they are just not echoes. They are echoes that get amplified and they are embellished through Sandeep's writings. So David Frawley, in his foreword, he says, these essays, they are of profound scholarly research. There is little comparable work of comparable depth, detail, originality, or broadness of vision on India's situation today. This is a very, very accurate summarization, assessment of the works of Sandeep. So he goes on to say, this is in the legacy of Sitaram Goyal, Ram Swaroop, Arun Shauri, etc., but in a much updated form, in a new form, and with a many-sided approach. So what Dr. Frawley means by many-sided approach, he doesn't elaborate, but we can definitely see it in the works of Sandeep. So you can see when Dr. Frawley says profound scholarly research, this is something that is so evident in every page and every line of Sandeep's writing. So he can copiously, prodigiously quote, like Hari and the other speakers were talking about. He can quote from the Ramayana, from the Mahabharata, the Itihastas, the Vedas, the Puranas, right up to writings in contemporary magazines and quote from contemporary media. But it is not just about quoting. He can put them all together in one single homogeneous, fantastic writing. So that is something that is extraordinary. So Sandeep does that with Ilan. So there is like what Frawley says, there is nobody else probably in today's contemporary writing world who can actually do this. And how, if you think Sandeep is able to actually do this, I think it is only because he himself is so rooted in the Hindu culture and in the Hindu ethos. It makes it probably easier for him to kind of synthesize over time, space, and so many different subjects and so many different dimensions. So that is something remarkable. So we'll get to the actual structure of the book itself. So like I said, it is a collection of essays, and the author himself says these are a collection of essays, but the common theme is cultural and civilizational heritage. Okay. So when he starts, he has divided the book into section 1 and section 2. There is also a prologue. But the section 1 is India before secularism, and the section 2 is India after secularism. So these are the two sections. So in section 1, he starts by defining or explaining the defining nature of Hindu society. What was this Hindu society? How was it? He says it was essentially spiritual, it was inward-looking, it was introspective, it was inclusive, and all of these made the Hindu society very resilient. And we can see this is probably the only civilization that has survived the onslaught of the so many factors. So he's first, in section 1 and in the first few chapters of the book, he portrays a fantastic picture of ancient India. so that we have to kind of connect back to our roots. We have to connect back to the old Hindu society. We have to connect back to the ethos of ancient Indian society. Because this is the connect that we have lost. And because we have lost this connect, we have lost the value for what we have lost. We don't even know what we have lost. So he goes on. Then he explains the nature of the society, and he himself says it is extremely important that we grasp the roots. We have to understand the core ideals, the basic character, and the nature of Indian people. What was the nature of the Indian people? What really drove the society? So, of course, there is very elaborate, exposition on how dharma was the bedrock of Indian society, how it was driving every facet of Indian life, and how it was manifesting and permeating every facet of Indian life, be it food, arts, culture, clothing, literature, etc. It was everywhere. In explaining this, he quotes from Dr. S. Shastri. So this is something I think the other authors, other speakers also have mentioned. The kind of quotes he can come up with, the range and the depth and the range of his research is extraordinary. So be it Srikant Shastri, R.C. Majumdar, or Sitaram Goyal, or Jadunath Sarkar, or you name all the classical authors, he would have quoted with, such ease. So in this quote, he says, Dr. Srikant Shastri says, the culture of India, like the country itself, is indivisible and timeless. He says it is thus like Atma, the self, timeless and imperishable. This is reassuring. But to capture the Atma, to capture the spirit is extremely difficult. But Sandeep does that. Sandeep does capture the spirit and the Atma so wonderfully well. And not only does he capture, he makes us also understand the spirit. So through his writings. So there is another quote that he makes from Dr. Mahopadhyaya P.V. Kane, where he says, our Hindu culture, our Hindu society is based on foundations as laid by our ancient sages. And this has endured for 3,000 plus years. So something that has endured and survived for 3,000 plus years, somehow this generation, this is a quote, and this is a lament by P.V. Kane. He says somehow this generation sees nothing that is worth striving for. It somehow sees nothing to practice as an ideal. And he then kind of warns, if a large majority of our people and leaders throw away this Hindu culture, we shall lose both spiritual life and social betterment. It's very profound. Sandeep echoes this in every writing of his. This probably is if you ask me if there was one single motivation and inspiration for Sandeep, it is probably this. He keeps reiterating, re-emphasizing the fact that the Hindu culture is something to strive for, is something that we have to preserve. Okay? So, well, this is the situation. So he paints, very vividly the Hindu society based on dharma, dana, and so many other facets. There are extraordinary details in that. Let's not go into all of that. So, but the fundamental thing is, yes, we can connect to that. We can even appreciate that it is something to strive for, etc. But we have to understand that this is under continuous threat. This is under constant threat. This has been reiterated again and again. But the author sees an epochal shift in 2014. Like he himself says, this is a stock taking, and he sees an epochal shift in 2014. We know what the event was. It was Narendra Modi becoming the Prime Minister of the country. This probably, it starts with a hope. It is 3 years into Modi becoming the Prime Minister, the first edition. It kind of started with a hope. He sees rays of hope there, of course, and something's really changing. But there is certainly a renewed interest in re-establishing Hindu culture. There is a renewed interest in rejuvenating temple traditions. There is a renewed interest in, Hindu culture itself. So we have been hearing these days very commonly words like cultural renaissance, civilizational movement, civilizational renaissance, etc., etc. It is a good thing that people are actually talking about all of this. But like Hari and many others actually mentioned, these words, this kind of jargon was something that was given to us and has been used with a lot of maturity and understanding and wisdom 25 years before in Sandeep's writings. This I have followed from Sandeep Web to Rediscovery of India and right up to Dharma Dispatch. Seriously, Sandeep, exactly. So this is the kind of jargon that today somehow we are able to hear and listen to quite commonly. It's a good thing, but we have to be also be a little careful that these words have very loaded meanings. They are very, very difficult words. It should not be used so that it became kind of cliches. Yeah. Okay, so we'll come back to the actual book itself. So in section 1, he talks about dana, dharma, and he talks about the the sartha, the caravan culture, the temple annadana culture, the chaultries, how and the tirtha kshetras, the pilgrimages, and how these actually became the cultural unifying factors. So there is one entire chapter on facets of India's cultural unity and civilizational resilience. So exploring these facets of Indian cultural unity, he gives us very many examples, very profound, but what really brought in the cultural unity of the country? There are so many of them, like festivals, like food culture, and like I mentioned, the pilgrimage, tirtha kshetras, all of that. They brought in a cultural unity. This cultural unity also brought in a civilizational resilience. This resilience gave us the strength to be able to take on the threats of Islam, and even before Islam, this kind of threat that the author identifies came from degenerate Buddhism. Why this happened was it actually killed the spirit of Kshatriya. Once the spirit of Kshatriya was killed, it became very difficult for us to take on the onslaught of external invasions. So he gives this picture, this the civilizational resilience. So in doing that, he also mentions how during this period of onslaught of Islam and post that, the resilience was manifested through the Bhakti movement, how the Bhakti movement was able to counter and how it used itself as a rejuvenating force. And after the Bhakti movement, there was another onslaught. That was a reaction to the Islamic invasions. But then there was another threat that came, another onslaught by the British. And the British used very different techniques, very different methods to destroy the Hindu culture and the Hindu society. And one of them was, of course, the Maculay education. So this also we were able to fight. So he calls the mid-19th to mid-20th century, that was the age of modern Indian Renaissance. That was when there was copious works on Indic, Indic studies that happened, from Shrikanta Shastri to a lot of names that he actually gives. There was a era of Renaissance. But unfortunately, in 1947, the rulers and the leaders of that time, they systematically destroyed this Renaissance. So it was completely systematically destroyed. He goes on to explore how this systematic destruction happened. Okay? So one fundamental tool that they use is history. So this was mentioned by the other scholars also. One fundamental tool is history. So if you subvert history, the aim of that is essentially to cut off the roots. So that when you actually are cut off from the roots, you don't see any value in something that is inherited. You really don't see any value in our past. You don't really see any value in what we have been bequeathed upon. So there is really no motivation whatsoever to really preserve or sustain this. So this was one, the Bhakti movement, and then the age of modern Indian Renaissance. And then there is also another period post 1990s. I think Sandeep also is a part of that. So this is the age when Sitaram Goyal, Ram Swaroop, and Voice of India, the writers of Voice of India, they were doing a lot of human work in these areas, but they were all silent because, like it was mentioned, the establishment was very against this kind of an ecosystem. So coming to this range of Sandeep's writing in history, so I was saying he can quote from so many different sources and so many different timelines, and he can bring them all together in wonderful pieces. An essay or many essays that are examples of this, he actually quotes from the Apadharma, and then he is able to connect from the Apadharma Parva of the Mahabharata. He can connect from the Kanika Niti, and then he can connect it to the current socio-political the narratives. So this is the kind of statecraft of today's statecraft. He talks about the educational history, educational heritage. This is one fantastic piece of work. In the educational heritage, he talks. The range is astounding. The kind of quotes that he makes in the in this essay are astounding. This is essentially about the Vyasa Purnima or the Guru Purnima. We know that it's the birthday of Vedavyasa. But here he explains to us what is Vidya, what is the nature of Vidya, what is the goal of Vidya, and he quotes from Taittiriya Upanishad, the Bhruguvalli. He quotes from Apastamba. He can quote from Radha Mukherjee, and he explains so many facets of our education in one single article. This is something remarkable, fantastic. So when in this section 1, he would have set us and made the reader understand what the ancient Hindu culture was, what is the kind of history of ancient Hindu culture that we have lost. And then he moves on to section 2, where this is where he actually, and from cultural history, he kind of transitions to political history. So this political history, a lot of talk has already happened, so I will not really go too deep into this, but the machinations of our leaders in manipulating history, this is extremely revealing. This is extremely revealing. So the examples of Jadunath Sarkar, the example of R.C. Majumdar. In fact, he has given an entire series of lectures on Jadunath Sarkar. And as we speak, there is another series that is being done by Kashyap Naik on R.C. Majumdar. So these are very enlightening works. And this is not easy to put together because this kind of information is not easily available at all. You have to read something like this, something that Sandeep writes. Only then you will actually be able to put so many different facts together. It is impossible to get them all in one source. So that is so. But he goes on. There is a lot of work about the subversion of history. So we will not go into that because we are actually short on time now. So he says how this subversion of history has actually relegated Krishnadevaraya, such a great ruler, to a footnote. This is true of many other rulers. There is another chapter on the Wadiyar, on Narasimharaja Wadiyar. It's the same story there. We hardly know anything about such rulers. They have systematically ensured that we do not read anything about them, or it is simply relegated to a footnote. So fantastic. So I will leave this book there and very quickly wrap up with just a very quick reading of stories from inscriptions and 10 lessons from Hindu history. So I'll first, this 10 lessons from Hindu history. A lot of this history, Sandeep himself has written in many other works, in entire works. I think Vikram will be following me with the medieval history. So a lot of these lessons. So basically, why I think the author writes this is we are very lazy people. It is very difficult for us. We will not be motivated to go through pages and pages of history. And when doing that, we will certainly miss the lesson. But Sandeep ensures that he can condense the entire story, the historical stories, into lessons that are directly told to us. This, I think, should be the real way of writing history. So history, like Ram Sharma already explained, this is not just about facts. Sandeep himself says, Itihasa and our writing and Itihasa are different. It is like a darshana. It is a vision. You have to understand this is knowledge. It is simply not a rattling of facts. So in order to do this, our history books, unfortunately, are missing out completely on the value part. And it is completely missing the value and the lessons. So Sandeep concises all of these into 10 episodes and wonderfully puts them into one single writing of 10 episodes. So here, of course, I think the takeaway is the loss of the Aryavarta consciousness. This was already mentioned by the other speakers. So, and the stories from inscriptions. This is another fantastic work. You simply start reading this work. He starts with what epigraphy is. He starts with explaining what the history of epigraphy is in India, what is the Western epigraphy, how is the Indian epigraphy. He juxtaposes both of them. What is the value there? What is the value here? And he says this is an invitation to profundity, which is very true. I have to read just one simple paragraph here. So he says, Indian epigraphy in particular is one of the toughest disciplines and a highly demanding profession. In no specific order, it calls for expert level or at any rate a highly advanced knowledge in multiple disciplines. He goes on to name the disciplines, including but not limited to mathematics, geometry, chemistry, language, linguistics, grammar, literature, poetry, art, folklore, painting, sculpture, history, geography, genealogy, dating, orthography, sacred and secular lore, history of our religions and sects, ancient and medieval jurisprudence, material history, common metaphor. This is oceanic language, oceanic knowledge. So just going through the list of topics and subjects that an epigrapher should know, if anybody ever ventured to become an epigrapher, it will put them off. So what Sandeep does is, he wonderfully makes them into stories that can be told. Fantastic. You have to really read this. Fantastic stories. Unfortunately, we don't have the time for all this. So I will wrap up here. Thank you, Sandeep, for giving us this privilege. This is extraordinary. So we can go on and on about the works of Sandeep. I think he will give us many more opportunities to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chandru, for that very comprehensive overview of Sandeep's writings on the cultural and political history of India. I request Sri KBS Ramchandra to please present Chandru with a token of respect. I now request our last speaker, but on a very important topic, Sri Vikram Phadke, to please come on stage. Vikram will introduce to us the Sandeep's writings on the medieval period of India, focusing majorly on the multi-volume series Invaders and Infidels. Vikram Phadke is an advocate practicing in the Karnataka High Court. He is one of Preksha Pratisthana's trustees. He comes from a family of advocates and holds a master's degree in international economic law from Birmingham University. Vikram is a committed and devout student of history and is also a committed patriot. And more importantly, perhaps, he is a friend for all seasons. He can pull your leg and hold your back equally well. To us at Preksha, he is the embodiment of calmness, resourcefulness, and worldly wisdom. I invite Vikram to give this talk.
Thank you, Shashi. It is indeed a privilege. And to capture nearly 3 decades of works in a couple of hours, it's impossible. And the range of subjects you might have listened now, that it ranges from ancient history to the modern secularism and everything in between. And I am specifically given the task of speaking on the medieval history writings of Sandeep. And see, I have had the privilege that you all have seen the product. And for a brief time, I have had the privilege of seeing the process of this product being coming into this one. And as Hari mentioned, when I was a roommate with Sandeep for a brief for 10 days, and in the middle of the night, I could just see that Sandeep is frantically thumping his fingers on the laptop. And I could see him how he works. And the energy, the focus, it is the process of very creation. And this itself, I can say, is it gives you, it encourages you that something of this sort can be done. And I have had the fortunate company of him and also all the other friends on various trips. Now, I should say that Hari already mentioned that what Modi ji said of Sandeep. Imagine we are all fans of Modi, of course, but Modi is a fan of Sandeep. And see, Sandeep addresses the mediocre masses, among whom I am also one. And then he implores the mediocre masses to action. And actually, as Arjuna was telling, his words has inspired many people to do so many great things. Therein lies the strength of Sandeep. That is what I feel. And see, Sandeep draws upon the masters like K.S. Lal, Sitaram Goyal, Jadunath Sarkar, Majumdar, all of them. But for every age, there has to be a retelling of the same content so that it makes us enlivened. It makes us to sit upright and think what we can do. And to tell that in the present day grammar is very, very important. I think originality in material content is overrated. What is required is re-rendering of the same stuff, the Sanatana stuff, again and again and again, so that for every age, it makes us it prods us to action. Without action, nothing is, we will not exist. But to make us to act, these kind of stalwarts, this, I would say he is a rishi. He is writing the same thing so for nearly 3 decades with passion and also with compassion. He knows. He for himself writes with passion, but he writes for us with compassion. He writes for our future, our children's future with compassion. That is what is really, I think, is what Sandeep is. Whenever you are in a stupor, you become complacent. The immediate antidote to it is just randomly pick up any article of Sandeep, you read it across, and you think, oh, I have to do something. I have to do something. What is this? Why am I dozing off? This is what Sandeep does to us. As a reader, see, he quotes from the masters, but he quotes very aptly. When Sandeep says in all his in his writings, what have we lost? What is the real consequence? He quotes very aptly. He quotes Munshi. He says, Islamic conquest of India was the conquest of culture by those who lacked it. In one sentence, he tells everything, and Munshi tells everything, and very aptly Sandeep quotes it. And this pushes us. See, while writing, he writes the names of the places. We know of the names of the places, but when he puts it in the context, when we see not Multan but Mulasthan, when we see Lakshmanavati, when we see Nalanda, Yoginipuri, that is Yoginipura, that is Delhi, or Madurai or Bhagyanagar, then even with single words, he can trigger us. And just to see, I will come to the names of the chapters. But let us see, after nearly 1.5 decades of writing various articles, blogs and everything, he comes up with his first book on Tipu. Tipu Sultan, the tyrant of Mysore. Just see the heading. Like we have been told that Tipu is the tiger of Mysore. In one master stroke, he cuts it off and says that he is the tyrant of Mysore. He starts from his homeland. After he goes all over India, Sandeep, he writes what Tipu has done. The marauder of Mysore, the marauder of the culture, the marauder of language. And he has taken from the original sources, the letters. Not the letters what Britishers wrote, but what letters Tipu himself wrote to his generals. And there lies the strength of Sandeep. He, after his book on Tipu, see, there were various articles in newspapers, arguments for and against Tipu, everything. But Tipu's book by Sandeep is a very definitive work. After Sandeep's work, Tipu Sultan is no kosher anymore. See, there are two other works I want to, I have to talk about. That is Invaders and Infidels, part 1 and part 2. Sandeep writes from the 8th century to the 18th century. That is, we saw Tipu of the 18th century. He starts from the 8th century wherein, Muhammad bin Qasim, Dahir, from fall of Dahir to the fall of Tipu, for nearly 10 centuries, Sandeep has written extensively. And another important aspect of Sandeep's writing is, while he is writing history, he immediately brings us to the present and reminds us what was going on then is no different in a principal way what is going on now. So that Sandeep's writing is not boring. It is invigorating. It makes us immediately come from the past to the present. This is, I think, Sandeep's strength. Now I'll just go to the titles of the chapters. In one, as Hari said and Arjuna said, with regard to Bhairappa's works, what Sandeep has written, it is so native and all these things. Just imagine, we have known the titles of Bhairappa's works. Nele, Nirakarana, Tantu, Jalapata, Parva, Sartha, everything. But Bhairappa writes, Tabbalyu Ninade Magane. Very uncharacteristic that he has a long this one. For that Sandeep gives only one word, orphaned. That is the strength of Sandeep. In the sense, so let us see the names of the chapters in Sandeep's book. He says, I'll just read out the titles of the chapters. You will come to know what is inside the chapter. That is very easy. He says, from 8th century to 11th century, 3 centuries of imperial Islamic frustration. That is, when Islam captured, it went till the Atlantic Ocean, from the Middle East, that is till Spain, Portugal, everywhere, within 50 years of Muhammad's death. For nearly 3 centuries, Islam could not get a foothold in our Bharatavarsha. For that, in the title of the chapter is 3 centuries of imperial Islamic frustration. Just imagine. And what happens next? That is very shocking. We see for nearly 500 years our culture being pounded and pounded and pounded. And for that chapter he gives, the Turushka barbarian barges into the living room. He makes us immediately aware that the barbarian is near us. This is the strength of the language, he says. And while he is talking about the chivalrous acts of valor of our great kings, but he still sees what happens. He says, the civilizational cost of misplaced magnanimity. Starting from Dahir, okay, And until the end of the, what you say, even in the 1857 war, we had to have this, the king, the so-called emperor of Mughal, this one, as the leader of our independence movement. Just see the psyche, that this is what happens, that this is the civilizational cost of misplaced magnanimity. And he captures the entire themes in one sentence. And this is, I think, is the strength of Sandeep. And see, he writes in this, this one paragraph I will read. He captures the entire tribe of this Muslim invasion. He writes, Jalaluddin Firoz Shah Khalji was the Sultan's standard freak in the blood-stained annals of Delhi Sultanate. He was a thorough misfit. He was a misfit, but what was he misfit for? He was a thorough misfit for an Islamic imperialism that demanded the incessant and ruthless application of the worst of human tendencies: double-dealing, hypocrisy, despotism, treachery, mercilessness, and an impulsive capacity for senseless violence even in peacetime. This, how can you come up with this language? Unimaginable. And if this does not prod you to action, then I don't think anything else will make you are dead. And if I might say so, he is writing about all the chroniclers and from their own sources. Let us see what the chroniclers would have said about Sandeep. If they were there now, they would have said, Sandeep is the Ghazi of the only true religion called truth. With his unsheathed sword of pen, he has ridden the intellectual world of the blasphemy of the infidels sitting in the temples of government-sponsored bodies. He has delivered and is delivering 1,000 cuts and mortal blows to the idolaters whose deity is Marx and Mao. He has razed to the ground the foolish tomes verily worshipped by the ignoramus students of the universities, and in their place has raised the flag of the only true faith called truth. We pray the Almighty, the most benevolent and merciful, to bestow upon this Ghazi eternal merit on the judgment day. And see, in conclusion, I would like to say that we all owe a great debt to Sandeep. Our country owes a great debt to Sandeep. And he is keeping the lamp brightly burning, not only light to see the path ahead, but also also the heat to propel us again and again. I, on behalf of Preksha and also from my Phadke family, I am beholden to him. And I pray to the Almighty that he comes up with many more works, not for his sake, but for our sake. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikram, for that very spirited talk. It brought before our eyes the efficacy of Sandeep's language and narrative powers. I request Sri KBS Ramchandra to please honor Vikram. Dr. Arati and Sri Shashi Kaundinya from Vibhu Academy would like to honor Sri Sandeep Balakrishna on in their individual capacity and on behalf of all his admirers. I request them to please come on stage. I request Sandeep's mother to please come on stage, Srimati Ratnama to please come on stage. Thank you, Dr. Arati and all the dignitaries. Now we have the great pleasure of hearing the man of the moment speak. I request Sri Sandeep Balakrishna to please address us.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಆಲ್ಟರ್ನೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಹಿಂದಿ. ಈ ಥರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಟ್ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಯು ಟು ಸ್ಪೀಕ್ ಅಂತ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಮೇಕಿಂಗ್ ಮೀ ಟಂಗ್ ಟೈಡ್ ವಿತ್ ಆಲ್ ದಿಸ್ ಆನ್ರಶ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಮೋಷನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಲ್ ಟು ಶತಾವಧಾನಿ Dr. Ganesh. Most of us sitting in this room are alumni of his university, and we will be that lifelong, without doubt. So thanks, Ganesh ji, for that. And one doesn't know where to begin on such occasions. I didn't prepare a speech for these things. In fact, I didn't know that I would be invited to speak. This was another grand conspiracy hatched by Ganesh and Shashi. So, yeah, thanks all to my immediate family members. But I must mention that apart from my immediate family, Dr. Ganesh holds the dubious distinction of being my victim. He's also a friend and a victim. ನನ್ನ ಸಂತ್ರಸ್ತರು ಇವರು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋ ಕಿರುಕುಳ ಅಷ್ಟಿಷ್ಟಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಕಿರುಕುಳದ ನೇಚರ್ ಆಗಲಿ ಇನ್ನೊಂದಾಗಲಿ ನಮ್ಮಿಬ್ಬರ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲೇ ಇದೆ. ಅದು ಹಾಗೆ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದು. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಗೈಡೆನ್ಸ್, ಫಾರ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪೇಷನ್ಸ್, ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್, ನೋ ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಟ್ ಇಸ್ big enough. And then of course you have the entire Preksha team who have been generous, with their support, with their encouragement. When he came home and informed me about, organizing this program, ಇಂಥ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಕೆಚ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಮದುವೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಲೀಡಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿದಾಗಲೇ ನಾನು ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೆ. but his affection is truly boundless. So ಈಗ ಆನೆಗಿನೆಲ್ಲ ಹಾಕಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾರ್ಮಲಿ ಐ ಆಮ್ ನಾಟ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ದೀಸ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಕಿರುಕುಳ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಸೇರಿ ತೀರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂತ ಕನ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. So that is there. Of course, Priksha family is also, I mean, it is just a name, Upadhi intaralla, adu ondu Upadhi. It's part of the same, intellectual and, journey of several years that I have been fortunate to participate. I mean, a lot of people have given a lot of adjectives to me. I'm not sure I deserve most of it. This is not false humility, but a keen awareness of both my limits and limitations. So, and of course you have, it's my fortune that I could be in, such close, not just proximity to, but actually to be having such regular guidance with two of our national treasures in our midst, Dr. Nadoja, S.R.Ramaswamy. He is the real rishi of our times. And of course, Dr. Ganesh is there. So whatever my writing, all these praises and other things, all nice words apart, the raw material is part of my interactions and, guidance, visible, invisible, tangible, intangible, that I have had with them. And thanks to my, all my extended family, my chikkammas and my Ravi Mama, illa idira illi. Thanks all of you for making the time to come here and give me your blessings. I think I'll stop at this. Anything, I've already said enough. So Shashi, bye.
I think this marks the tradition when a speaker who is honored invites the MC on stage. Thank you, Sandeep, for that rare feat. And of course, in his characteristic humility, Sandeep just expressed his gratitude to all of us, and it is those very characteristic features of his that draw all of us to him. Once again, we thank Sandeep Balakrishna, all his family members for being present here. I request Shri Shakaranta to please come on stage and deliver the vote of thanks.
Namaskara. It's a privilege and it's a pleasure to be part of this program as well as to be part of the journey of Sandeep, however small it is. So I really thank Sandeep and his family for accepting this invite, and especially when Ganesh sir said this, and everybody was really thrilled because it's a very rare occasion to celebrate one of our own members' birthday in this formal manner. We may celebrate in hotels and other places, but to celebrate the achievements and on stage and family members gathering here and accepting our invite is really a special one for us. So for that, I thank Sandeep, I thank all the family members here, Rohini, everyone. Thank you. I thank Dr. Sharma ji for coming from Ahmedabad, and so all along we usually think like we know our people better, right? So when he was speaking about Sandeep's works and where in the bigger context where to see Sandeep and also all the works of stalwarts in Sanatan Dharma. So I was relating how he has clearly comprehended and putting the works of Sandeep in place, and how quickly he's summarizing in 20 minutes, right? So that's the reach and the touch of Sandeep across the globe, beyond Karnataka and beyond India, that I must say. And I thank Ritendra Sharma ji on behalf of Preksha. And I thank Nadoja, S.R. Ramaswamy for being our mentor, for being our advisor, and also being part of this event and guiding us. And Dr. Shatavadani R. Ganesh. So he is the initiator of this program, and Sandeep explained how he kind of trapped or blackmailed or whatever you call it. So he made Sandeep and his family agree for this event, and for also speaking about all the very closer details and minute details of Sandeep and his life. Thank you, Ganesh, for your words and your initiative. So I must thank all the speakers here. So our friends and our Preksha members, Chandrasekhar, K.S. Chandrasekhar, Vikram Padke, Arjun Bharadwaj, and Hari Ravi Kumar for speaking about the works of Sandeep in different dimensions and their close association with Sandeep and how they interacted, how they worked together, especially Hari, how they came together and started our trust, that the Preksha Pratisthana, how it came to life and how it got energized by their contribution. So I thank all the speakers of today's event. So Preksha is basically blessed to have very great stalwarts of our Karnataka and our Bengaluru, where we have them as advisors. So Dr. S.L. Bhairappa is one of them, and we thank for his guidance. So all along we were blessed to have his advice and his works and his life. But recently we were kind of, what to say, we were, whether I should say we got embarrassed or we are like now with heavy heart and duty bound to do more, because we got a very big amount of donation from his, which was not at all, we were not expecting that, but considering our work and considering his vision for future of Sanatan Dharma, he has donated 10 lakhs to Preksha Pratisthana, and I don't know how to express our thanks to him, but again, it's the work of masters that makes us speechless. And I thank all the advisors, Professor L.V. Shantakumari, Dr. S.R. Leela, Dr. T.S. Satyavati for their advice all along, and yes, Sandeep has been our founding editor and recently has graduated to advise us. He has been very active advisors of Preksha Pratisthana. We thank him for that role also. And the next is our donors. We always want to remember and thank their contribution and their support. So majorly Preksha is supported by Development Foundation and it's been Infosys Foundation who have been supporting us from a long time. So I remember their contribution and thank them. Along with such institutions, we have great friends, individuals, just to name a few, Neelakanta and Sudhakar Jose and Prasanna Ganpati, who have been consistently supporting Preksha activities. I thank them. I thank our chartered accountant, Srinivas Rao, for helping us through the all the financial formalities and on-time filing and other activities where the Preksha has been there from last 8-9 years. So here he has been with us. I thank him. And especially we are digital content producers, and for that a technical team and hosting the website and making no technical glitches for the readers is very important. And our Saranga Technologies have been with us and supporting us from last 6-7 years, and I thank them for their support. reaching out to people is one of the major things that we need to do, whether it is offline or online. So through online is the major effort that we have been spending, and Sumana Ganesh is our person for marketing us in the digital media, and I thank her for her support. And offline distribution of our content is through our books. So printers like Rashtrotana Mudranalaya have been our supporting printing partner, and also Gayatri Prints. So they have been printing our books in good quality and considerable rates. So I thank them in this occasion. And finally, a second home for us, Preksha, is Gokhale Institute of Public Affairs. So whenever we think of an event, we don't think of a place, because it's decided even before we think of an event. So I thank GIPA for all their support, all the members of the GIPA and administration. I thank them on behalf of Preksha. And I finally I thank all of you who have come here for this. Sorry. Yeah, I thank Shashi and Kashyap Naik. So Shashi for planning the event and also doing the MC here, and Sandeep and Kashyap for doing the invocation, and all of you for coming here on the Sunday morning and being with us for 3.5 hours. Thank you very much.